If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
Oh man, it was great having somebody that I used to read about and watch in the bodybuilding magazines and shit.
Yeah,
since when I was growing up and all into that stuff.
Very, very cool to do this, man. I mean, I've always thought that Flex Wheeler had and me personally, what I think is the most amazing, awesome physique ever. Like, I just think the way his physique was built, it was in 93 or 94, the show.
Then I think in 93 is when he won the Arnold Classic, and that's, I mean, it's widely regarded as one of the best presentations of a physique of all time.
That's what I believe. When you looked at his waist to shoulder to leg, calf, everything ratio, and his conditioning and muscle separation that he had, it's just gorgeous. It was absolutely amazing to me, and bodybuilding's changed so much, but what a fun conversation.
It's just so cool because we have this platform. I get to meet, I mean, again, this is somebody I looked up to. I used to read all the magazines in the 90s when I was a kid, when I first started working out, and Flex Wheeler's like one of the biggest celebrities to me as a kid. And having a podcast and being able to invite people like him on and get to meet him. And then on the other thing about Flex is there's a lot of controversy around him. And the guy is very open. He's an open book. We ask him about his life. He talks to us about, battling with suicide, getting molested as a kid. He talks about drug abuse. He talks about the steroid use in bodybuilding. Talks about competing in the 90s versus today. We even got controversial and talked about, some of the recent politics that are going on right now. I mean, I like him. I didn't know him as a person. I respected him as a bodybuilder and as kind of that celebrity in that world. But now, of course, get to know the guy. I love the guy. Yeah. Great dude, super open. We had over 2 hour podcast with him. So we had a great conversation.
Yeah, I did. And it came out the gates pretty quick, but about 30, 40 minutes in, it really turned up a notch, I think, and we got really deep with him and very personal with his life. And I love that he's such an open book. I mean, there's totally nothing, as an interviewer, nothing's more fun than interviewing somebody who is not afraid to just speak his mind, and then it's up to us to ask the right questions. And I thought we did a pretty good job of navigating him through that. And you're right, we even touched on a little bit of the Kaepernick stuff that's going on, which it was cool to hear his perspective, and we had a little discussion around that. And with his being a cop in his background, I think that's really cool. And so that was the whole thing was just a great conversation. I hope everybody really enjoys it.
If you want to see what bodybuilding embodied in a physical human and what it's supposed to look like, I guess, go to his Instagram. Look at some of his old videos and pictures. His Instagram page is @officialflexwheeler. And then he just started a YouTube channel where he posts some of his videos, and you can find that on YouTube. It's just Flex Wheeler. We also mentioned our sponsor, Everlywell. We talked about testosterone replacement therapy and testing your testosterone. Of course, Everlywell makes tests that you can do at home for lots of different things, including hormone tests. If you go to everlywell.com and use the code MINDPUMP, you'll get 15% off any test, including the testosterone tests, which are really inexpensive to begin with. Also, before we get into the episode, we have, don't forget to go check out our MAPS programs. If you go to mapsfitnessproducts.com, you can look at all the different MAPS programs that we have. They're all designed for different goals. And then we also offer bundles where we combine multiple MAPS programs and discount them. For example, we have a Build Your Butt bundle. We have a Super Bundle, which is a year of exercise programming. We have a bundle designed for people who want to get shredded. We have a bundle designed for people who are always on the go and work a lot. Lots of different options. All the information you can find on our site, mapsfitnessproducts.com. And without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Flex Wheeler. Does everybody call you Flex or Ken or
Flex?
Mostly
yeah.
Flex. Yeah.
My old friends who I have no contact with anymore, when they try to say, "Hey, Ken," I'm like, "Come on, man,
Yeah, I'm Flex.
That's like saying Magic's name. It's real name. Hey, Julius. Like,
That's
right.
true.
That's crazy.
That's true.
Speaking of that, where did the origin of that come from? I mean, was that something that
was that from bodybuilding or before?
Nah, it was pretty much a derogatory comment. I was
really?
I was just a typical skinny kid, I graduated. I wasn't even over 100 pounds when I graduated out of high school. So I got into bodybuilding and I started my career in martial arts and got into bodybuilding later on. And just, I guess, a typical small man's complex, just walking around trying to be big. And guys are like, why are you always flexing? Here comes flex again. So it was kind of a negative thing.
Oh,
but,
wow.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's cool, though. That you.
Yeah. It caught on. And the first actual bodybuilding show I did, the promoter knew about it. He goes, I'm going to call you Flex. I'm like, come on, don't do that. And I went out on stage. They're like, next Flex Wheeler. And the crowd went crazy. I was a little skinny pencil, but the name kind of stuck, So
it worked out.
It worked out.
One of the things I appreciate that you talk about a lot, and it's something that we share on the show, is that we actually talk about a lot of what drove us into fitness was our insecurities.
Yeah.
Was exactly that. Being skinny guys, wanting to be bigger, and I know from the being in fitness for as long as I have, it's actually more common than you would think.
It is.
Right?
Even in MMA, you hear about it in martial arts. Either your big brother or somebody was beating your butt or this, that, and the other, and you just got into it, and now you just want to make everybody pay.
Right.
Yeah, and now you have a very interesting. I followed you quite a bit in the '90s. I was a huge fan of bodybuilding. You were definitely one of my favorites. I refer to you as probably the greatest uncrowned Mr. Olympia of all time.
Thank you.
But
Actually, I just got awarded that.
Did you really?
Yeah. There's a organization on Instagram, and they're pretty prominent now with just following the whole career. So they just did a countdown of the top 10 or top 30 bodybuilders who never won Mr. Olympia. And second was Kevin. I thought he would win.
Kevin would be my second also.
Yeah. Second was Kevin, and I was the first. So thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great to be acknowledged by your peers, and especially people are extremely competitive. I mean, what more do you want? Just to be accepted for your color, or regardless of what race you are, your color, your sex, or who you care to sleep with. I think the most important thing is, no matter what, we just want to be accepted.
Excellent.
So for my peers to accept me like that, it's great. It's better than winning Olympia.
Yeah, you're often referred to as one of the most aesthetic, pleasing looking bodybuilders of all time. It used to be Frank Zane. Now I think I hear your name more often. But you have an interesting childhood. You have a very interesting, story leading up to bodybuilding. So I want to go back a little bit. Now, you grew up in California, right?
Yep, California, Fresno.
Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that. You got into martial arts first. How did that happen? What was your childhood like? And then eventually, how did you get into bodybuilding?
So, I had a colorful childhood. It was rough. I grew up right around the time that the Crips and the Bloods had just formed in Fresno. So you had, based on neighborhoods, you had cousins and kin folks killing each other, because of that line. It didn't have anything to do with family anymore. So that was rough. I mean, unfortunately, single, parent, just typical American family, sad to say, but single parent. And, my mom tried to do the best she could. We were on welfare. And, the neighborhood was kind of rough. It was just, fighting or somebody getting beaten or jumped or something like that was just normal. So, me, I just, I was really non-conflict. I don't know. I was just a quiet kid, before I got destroyed by the world and became the person that I am now. But got it picked on a lot, got beat up on a lot. I think around the age of 9, I got into martial arts. The recreational center, actually it was called Ivy Recreational Center, had a movie, and they played Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon. And I just fell in love with it. I felt his character. I could identify to it. And ironically, a week later, they started offering martial arts for free. So I'm like, I'm all in, So I just, I was all in. I was 100%. I went to school every day I could to train, and I loved it. And I followed what the teacher and our instructor said, and I ended up becoming pretty good at it. But on the streets and in school, I still couldn't bring myself to harm anyone. But in the ring, it's not that I tried to harm anyone. I understood that it was a competition, and I wanted to inflict my will on you. And it was probably some background noise about being beat up all the time on the streets and just wanting to show myself. So, funny is the bullies at school in junior high at the time, I was terrified of them. So I would invite him to my school, knowing that I would have to fight him, and then I would just annihilate him. It was just, something would just click. I don't know. And then they would go back to school, and they would tell, so I didn't have to fight anyone at school because the bullies would go around and tell. But I still couldn't bring myself to fight on the street. I remember even my siblings, just as brothers and sisters do, would just have a field day, just beat me up. Even neighborhood kids would beat me up, and I would stand there and think, if I hit them, I'm going to hurt them. Or, if I hit their nose, what if I break it? Or what if I kick them in the ribs? I might break. And that was my thought. So I couldn't hit a person, on the streets. And finally, it clicked over. I remember my brother Darnell was picking on me as usual, and something just clicked. And he said something, and I just lit him up from top to bottom, and that was the end of it. The younger brother became the big brother, and but I was just wired like that. I just, I embraced it. I just loved it. But it was a rough childhood. But molestation. I was molested when I was a kid. I was homeless. As I grew up. Had to wear secondhand me-downs. Just a typical, horror story. But at the end of the day, what I've found is I wouldn't be any of the person that I am now if I hadn't went through those things. So, and more so than that, everybody's been through something. You talk to somebody who's been through something traumatic. To them, that's the most traumatic thing they've been through. You can't compare it to yours, right? You can identify, well, this is really worse. But for that person who went through it, no, that's the most traumatic thing they went through. Right. So everybody has been through something. Okay, so and I begin to understand that. So now moving forward to where I am now, it's helped me to be the person that I am, good, bad, ugly, whatever. I wouldn't be that person if you took anything.
How long did it take you, Flex, to shift your mindset like that? Because I imagine, and I have there's a lot of similarities in your story as my story. Growing up, I grew up in an abusive home. We also know what it's like to be on food stamps and welfare. My real father committed suicide when I was 7. So I can totally relate to your story in many ways. And I know I carried a lot of animosity in early years, and it took me a lot of growing before I started to piece that together and almost become grateful for what I went through, because it made me into like this piece of iron. I feel like that I wasn't afraid of anything else because of all the shit that I went through. Do you remember that transition for you? And did you also kind of carry a little bit of animosity?
Oh, yeah. So, one thing I left out, I was suicidal as a kid. First time I tried to commit suicide, I was 13, 12, something like that. And I continued throughout my life and even into my pro, career, where I'm winning all these shows and making all this money. And, 7-story house was my first house I bought on Venice, and, Harley in a driveway, and actually their car lot. And I think I had a SL 500 and a BMW, just kid that didn't have it crap, so. But I would go out, I remember I'd go out, win the Honor Classic, come back home and try to kill myself, I would, so I was also a police officer in Fresno for a while. So I love guns. I love weapons. I was trained with weapons, and, my martial artist who I owe everything to, Ty McGuire, he was just a very militant, person. He believes in adventurous stuff like being able to make your own water out of bad water, taking what he calls a go bag, have your go bag always ready, and your weapons that he's one of those type of guys. So he trained you that way in martial arts. So I remember, the things that I had to go through. And to answer your question, I don't actually know when it clicked, because I'm aware that I created this alter ego, not knowing it. This Flex Wheeler guy when I got bigger and stronger and all that stuff. So I didn't really take crap from anyone, and I was quick to give it back to him. I wouldn't start it, but I'd be really quick to make it happen. So if you want to make it happen, I'm like the weather. You walk outside and it's sunny, take your jacket off. It's cold, put your jacket on. That's the way I was, back then. Just
react.
Whatever you want to make happen. I'm not going to make it happen, but if you wanted to, I'm going to instigate it and try to, accelerate it as much as possible. So not knowing this kid who got abused a lot, that's where this Flex Wheeler character came to play. And as I started identifying to that and actually meeting people, globally who was very in tune to that type of stuff, they'd be like, there's a few of you in there. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And then, meeting some considerable people, not really friends, but people really close to me, like, there's like 6 of you. And I'm like, what the F you mean by that? But I would grapple with it. No matter whatever happened to me, whether I agree with you or not, I'd go back, to my own whatever, and I'd grapple with my thoughts about that. So right around like my late 20s, it was late for me because I was so wrapped up into trying to be this person and try to be as good as I wouldn't identify to anything. Right. So, but I would probably have to say it really clicked with me in my mid-30s, and that was the last time that not last time, but actually one of the closest I ever came to committing suicide. I'd been going through it my whole childhood, and the more people know it, the bad thing about it is you start getting annoyed because people think you're faking. You're not going to do it. I would not. So, what it does is it actually spurs you on to do it, to prove people wrong. Mm-hmm. People say, "Oh, what about your kids? So your thought in that is, the quicker I pull this trigger, I won't have to worry about that. So it's trying to force you into doing it. And, and you're going through all these emotions. Oh, my kids, they're going to be looking at my coffin, this, that. Though you realize and you graphically see all of it. The only way to make it go away is hurry up and pull the trigger. I only have to feel this as long as, I'm here. So hurry up and pull the trigger. So, one of the worst times, like, what? I'm tired of this. So-and-so knows, this person knows. And they think, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm just going to do it. And for the first time ever, I just heard this weird sound in me like, yeah, go ahead and pull the trigger so you can come be with me. And I'm like, that's not what I want. I just want this shit not to happen. I just want this to end. That's not what I want. And then I realized that's not a way out. It's not a way out. It's a way in that you can never get out. It's a freaking membership that you never cancel that membership. You're a VIP at the worst party ever, and it's not going to ever stop. I'm like, that's not what I want. I just want this. So what I realize is every day I wake up, I have an opportunity of changing that. And that's when it really started clicking for me. Like, what's wrong with you? What are these problems? What are these issues, and identifying to them and stuff like that. So probably around my mid-30s is when.
Did you work through all this? Like, because when you talk about it, it sounds like a lot of this is yourself. Did you not have to go to therapy or anything like that? I mean,
I don't. For me, that just didn't work, and it was probably the people. In '94, when I got into my car accident, it was a lot of rift behind that because of who I was, and we thought we were going to sue Mercedes and. Actually, somebody I met before that, Dr. Dre, I went to a party with him. So he ended up introducing me to his lawyer. And she took the case like, yeah, I'll take this pro bono. You're going to own Mercedes, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 because of how the car broke down. And it came out to, find out that Mercedes is one of the most aggressive companies you never sue. I mean, they'll just take you through. I mean, you can sue Rolls Royce. How many Rolls Royces are out in the street?
Not very many.
How many Mercedes?
Yeah,
So I mean, I literally had to have tent put on all my windows. I don't know how many windows in a house it was at the time, seven-story. I had to get rid of my Mercedes because they gave me a new one because they were trying to prove that, hey, Mercedes is not safe, so you can't own one. So Mercedes stretched it out, and I remember hearing about there was like 11, these big bodies. We used to call them big bodies back in the days because they were, right?
Yeah.
So it was 11 of these big body Mercedes lined up down the freeway where I had a car accident in, and they came within 10 miles of my actual speed, 179. So they came at, 176, and I'm like, and he goes, these people don't mess around. So what they end up doing is switching around, like, listen, you destroyed our car, you're responsible, this, that, and other. Drop your lawsuit, or else we'll countersue you. And my lawyer's like, after a year, they're like, we're out of money, we can't take this.
Wow.
Take it. And the joke was they gave me $1 a check. So obviously
to finish.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's the first time I went and seen a psychiatrist because they're like, you need help, this, that, and other, because my thoughts came back of killing myself. Here I am landing, a car. 1993 was the best career that I ever had. 4 pro shows, ranked number 2 in the world. Just kid from ghetto. Like,
was
wow.
that when you won Arnold Classic?
Yep. The first.
That's a lot of people refer to that as the best physique in bodybuilding history.
Yeah.
Was your presentation?
So that was 93 when I won the Arnold Classic, the Ironman, the Grand Prix.
So God, Prix. What a roller coaster then. So you had to feel on top of the world,
and then just bottomed out. So all those things came back about I'm checking out. I'm just going to kill myself. How am I going to get better? I broke my neck, C5, C6. I broke my collarbone. My eye was swollen out my head. My ear was ripped off. I'm like, how do you catch guys who are running 100 miles an hour and you got to be dead still? And they're going to keep running 100 miles an hour for months. How do I? So I checked out. So my, lawyer had me go see a psychiatrist, and it was just a mistake. I mean, for the first time I told a person that how I was molested and all these things. So he sat up there for an hour, listened to me just pour out things I've never told another person. And he looked at me like, that stuff happened a long time ago. You need to get over that. And I mean, you know, I was very big then, you know, and I was extremely violent if you pushed me. And I just looked at him like, dude, I'll fuck you up in here. I go, nobody will never know. You know, I will lock this door and beat you. So I just walked out and I talked to my lawyer about it. She goes, you know what? A lot of times people get into that business because of their problems. And she said, what happened is you brought up something or some things that he's never gotten over. And that's what he's telling himself. Just get over it. Just move on. It happened before. So I just was effed up, you know. So at the end of the day, if you go see help, if you go get help, you have to make that decision. I don't care what a person tells you. You need to hear it and then use it, right? So I just kind of just really talked to myself, and I still do because I still have these issues. So I'm ongoing, you know, trying to counsel myself with the man upstairs who's in control of everything. And I think at the end of the day, that's what gets me through everything.
I was just going to ask you, what is it that keeps pulling you back from that brink, that keeps pulling you back to being here? You've mentioned now a voice, and you now mentioned the man upstairs. Is it your faith? Yeah, it is. I mean, I was raised that way, and that's why it really messed me up when I heard that voice, like, yeah, come be with me. Because after all of 20-something years of trying to do this, I thought it was just a way out, and it just never hit me that way. So I was raised that way. I mean, my grandmother, you know, raised me, and she was just the most incredible woman I ever met. I mean, she was born in 1909. So imagine a black woman in 1909, what possibly she's seen. And she always raised me, you know, Kenny, they're just good and they're just bad. It's just good people and bad people. She never said color. So I was raised that way. I didn't see color. I seen good and bad. Now, I'm aware that the world sees that, but I just don't, you know. So, yeah, I was raised that way, and that's just what kept me rooted. I think that's the main reason why I'm probably still here, because what I've been able to do is a lot of the things I've been through, I've been able to help other people, and I could never sit in that room with them. I could never sit in a room with a person who's been molested or, you know, homeless, or know what it's like to be hungry, or, you know, suicidal, or, you know, the diseases that I had, the rare disease, kidney transplant, you know, 11 surgeries in 9 weeks. I would never be able to sit and talk to somebody who's been through that unless I've been through it. So I've really just tried to, you know, take everything that I've been through and try to help other people when they come to me. Because of your faith, do you ever think that maybe you were put in this position of, you know, super popular bodybuilder and getting your, you know, so lots of people have eyes on you, so that you could be that example? So you're going through those challenges, but you're also someone people could look up to. Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, you know, because it's rough. I mean, life is rough, right? But I'm aware that, you know, there's a biblical saying, you know, a light is put on a hill to be seen. And I get that. If you're, for whatever reason, if people are attracted to you, whether you're a star or a great athlete, a movie star, whatever, you're that light way up on a hill. People can see you from a far distance. You're put there for a reason. And I think that's the reason why we were put there. Now, a lot of us will take that power that we're given and misuse it. I did my whole career. But truly, that's the reason why those are gifts. I mean, in the Bible, it says that clearly. Some people are given these gifts, some people are given these, you know. So all of us has our gift. We all have a gift. It's just how we choose. We just have the right to choose. So 100%, I know that for a fact. It doesn't bring me comfort, because the reality is you have to go through that. It's still hard, but at least it gives you some purpose. Oh, yeah, it does. It does. And it's probably one of the greatest things is not the awards I won or any money that I won or anything or crazy things. It's hearing someone else that you can help, because you know what it's like in that dark place. And, you know, it was a person who just contacted me on the internet. I won't say his name, but it was on Instagram, and he just sent me a message about, you know, he broke up with his girl. He's madly in love with her, or she broke up with him, and he wanted to kill himself. And I didn't really pay attention to that message, because I got so many messages. Actually, I just blurred through it and just forgot about it because I was busy doing other things. And then I remember he sent me another message just saying today's the day, and that caught my attention. Oh, shit. And then I went back up and read all the messages. I'm like, crap. And I'm like, you know, what's going on? How can I help you? He's like, you can't help me. I just want to let you know, I just seen your London Reel video that you just did, and you know, you just really spoke to me. And it's just, you know, I heard this voice, and it was your voice saying, don't do it. And I was like, you know, man, call me right now. And he goes, no, I'm not going to call you. I'm just some white kid from the hick town, but you know, back south, and I'm just a nobody. And I said, you know what? I'm just some black kid from the ghetto. You know, I'm nobody either. Call me.
And I was actually with my daughter at the time, and he called me, and we just had an amazing conversation. And very respectful kid. Everything he was from those cultures, yes sir, no sir,
Wow.
and it just broke my heart. I started crying too on the phone with him, but he's still here. And he says, and we stay in contact, and he's like, I'm doing okay today. And, today ain't a good day. I'm like, today ain't a good day for me, man. This is what I'm going through. And I'm like, don't think it's ever going to get better. It's going to go up and down like a biorhythm. It goes up and down and up and down. You just got to ride it. You got to ride it. And to this day, he has a home now, and he's back working, and, he's really financially, pretty well off before all this happened. So come on, man, it's no money that's going to bring that to you, or when you meet someone and they say, hey, because of this you went through, I had strength to go through this. And I'm like, and here I am, when I look in the mirror, I see this weak person, you know what I mean? So that empowers me when I hear stories from other people like, if you can affect them like that, how can what's wrong with you? You can't affect yourself that way. But yeah,
Interesting.
A lot of people that have got stories like yourself or myself try and fill that void with success and money
and women
and women.
Sorry, maybe some guys.
No,
Yeah.
sir.
I'm messing with you.
That's 100% true right there. And then there comes a time when you reach that, when you have all of that at your disposal. Do you remember that? Do you remember learning those lessons?
I do. I remember. I just bought another Mercedes, an SL 500, and I was in a car. We were driving down, I think it was where were we? In Hollywood.
Oh, Bel Air?
Yeah, Bel Air area. And it was me and my training partner, Rico. And we're driving, and, got the, hood, the top off, and hats flipped back because I was, in the days back then. And Rico has always been, he's always been the leader of our club. Everybody always thought I was because I won, and he didn't win, and he was still an amateur, but he was always the leader. He probably wasn't aware, but I listened to him. Even though I argued, I went back and did, like he had said and everything. But we're driving, and he was always more secure than me. I remember we all worked at Roxbury, famous Roxbury.
Oh,
yeah. Interesting time. So he was always very comfortable with himself. He was even less off financially than I was. He drove an old Datsun 280Z. So you got to remember, this is like 94. And he's driving a Datsun 280Z, so you know how old that is. Yeah. And he was a big boy, so the car leaned to one side because he was so heavy, and it was just like, food all over the place. But it didn't matter. He'd pull up to a girl in a Rolls Royce and just spit at her. I'm like, I couldn't do that. I would have on I'd have to have on my best clothes, my jewelry sticking out, my top back before I could even feel comfortable, and he just he was very comfortable with it, and I envied him for that in a good way. I was like, wow, how can you do that? So what? So what? She got a nice car. Who cares? Or we'd be at the club. He'd spit out the A-list actress. And I'm like, dude, he goes, F her. If she don't want me, go to the next one. And I'm like, so we're driving, and I'm like, Rico, money don't make you happy, does it? And he turned at me and he gave me this eerie look, and he's like, damn, Flex, you finally figuring that out, huh? And I'm like, wow. So, cause I never could go nowhere without at least $4,000 or $5,000 in my pocket. Mm-hmm. And like I said, to even feel comfortable when talking to somebody, I had to have all my accessories because I had no self-esteem. So I wanted you to see my watch or my car or whatever, respect that. And then because I own those, maybe you'll respect me. That was me, instead of respect me because of who I am. Mm. And because of the person I am, not my status, but just because I'm a person. I never had that. So it was that low self-esteem that just really bothered me. And that's when it clicked about money don't mean crap.
Yeah. Sometimes one of the worst things that can happen to people is they get what they think that they want. Yeah. And then they get it and they realize, oh, this is not what I thought it would be. And then where do you go from there?
Yeah. I think, even I remember when stock dropped, and, even recently back in the, around 2007, 2010, where real estate just plummeted and everything. I was one of the people who lost my house over that crap. And, people were worse than me. And I remember another close friend of mine, Stan Efferding, who's, extremely, I don't know if you heard of him or not.
Oh yeah, we know him.
So not only financially strong he is, intelligent because he went to college for everything. He was just so sane. And he goes, yeah, I remember when that happened. You know, I lost a, I don't want to exaggerate, but it was multiple millions overnight. I don't want to exaggerate, but I'm thinking he said something like 50 or 100 million overnight.
Wow.
And I'm like, what did you do? And they're like, I got up, went to work the next day. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I worked to get it. I got my ass back in gear and I went back and I worked. And I'm like, but you remember, you had these other people who were multimillionaires and billionaires killing themselves. So, right, it doesn't make you happy. And I've never been to that status of money or whatever, but it's never made me happy. I mean, it made me worse because then I can go out and buy the things that poured into this big black hole, you know, that just nothing ever filled. And it's a huge void. It just sucks everything up that you throw into it. Yeah. And when you throw these things into it, whatever it is, you only get a realization that you're worse because that didn't work. That didn't work. She didn't work. You know, that car didn't work, you know, whatever. I remember, and it's highly embarrassing, but, you know, I had a 7-story house in Venice, and my way of seducing women was having to go through my house. So the first level is where I pull into my car, and then you see my cars. So, and then you walk through the door and there's the first level and, you know, these paintings or whatever, and you go up the next stair and there's bedrooms and bathrooms. You go up the next. So it's 7 levels. So my this is really embarrassing, but my 6th level, the 7th level house is my bedroom. So as you go through and you see all these things, it never went past my 6th level of my house, you know, and that was my way because I didn't feel comfortable who I am. And I remember sometimes if I was honest with a girl, they'd be like, what's wrong? Look at you. Look what you do. How could you? And I'm like, I don't see those things. I don't identify to none of those things. So,
it's crazy, man. Growing up and watching you in the magazines and competing and all that, would have never known you were this deep of an individual. Would have never known any of this stuff. And you know, you wrote a book, talking about a lot of this. A lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And I've been often because like tenfold has happened since the book, and people are like, write another one. I'm like, I'm not sure if I can handle that, you know, right? Because it was really rough to write that book. I even remember my ghostwriter, who was like a very successful writer in New York. She would have to take breaks. She's like, you know what, I'll call you in a couple of weeks.
Too intense.
But you know what, that's what I meant by this alter ego that I created. I found out at a young age that when people find out whatever your weakness is, where you're a scared person or intimidated person or whatever, they're going to use it against you. So I remember being on stage and understanding that. So I was terrified every time I went on stage, even if I knew I was competing against guys that just beat the next week. That don't mean shit. They can beat you this week. I'd be terrified. So, and being terrified, I would actually project this different image that was never me, but it worked. So if I was on stage and I was standing next to a guy, I'd tap him on the shoulder and maybe show my legs, like put my arm around him and show my, so it probably looks like I'm being arrogant, like my legs are bigger than yours. But my analogy was, if I put my arm around him, I just took your attention off of me and put it on him, right? And if I'm shaking my legs and then I point at yours, my attention just switched. That's what I'm thinking I'm doing because that's how uncomfortable I am about it. But I just knew that I had to put off this different era about myself, because if people understood that I was a scared person, then they're going to look at me like, what's wrong? And they'd stare into you deeper. You know, let me give you an analogy. It's like you walk into this house and the house is extremely clean, but it smells like shit. You're going to sit there and just dig for it. What is... If you walk into a house and it's mediocre clean and it just smells brilliant, you're going to sit down and relax. So that's my understanding on stage. If I'm on stage and I'm like, people are like, the fuck's wrong? No matter what I look like, if I stand up there, I look brilliant, like I own a place, like give me a once over, like, all right, what everybody else looks like. That's just the way we are as people. And that's what I figured out. And wildly as it sounds, I mean, just being as you know, unaware that I was doing it, that's what was going on. That's what I was trying to project.
I see. Let's talk about bodybuilding for a second. We're going to change gears a little bit. And, you know, the 90s today is now considered by bodybuilding fans as one of the greatest decades of bodybuilding. You know, they talk about the golden era being the 70s, but the bodybuilders of the 90s, they talk about them being just the conditioning, the size, the competition. It was super intense. Let's talk about that for a second. What was that like? How did you get into bodybuilding? And then what was that like? Because you came out the gates and just won everything that you touched right out the gates.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I mean, that's nothing that mine doing. That's the man upstairs.
Were you training with Charles Glass at the time, or was it after?
I was training with Charles Glass at the time and Rico. Rico and sometimes Chris Cormier, my first person. So actually, I was training with Charles Glass, Rico, and Chris Cormier as an amateur going into that show and then turning pro. So I don't know, man. I have no idea how that happened. I trained hard like other people. That was just a gift that the man upstairs gave me, and I trained and put some, a lot of effort into it, and I was blessed to do it. But my key word is I was blessed to do it. That's like Usain Bolt. Come on, that guy. I mean,
well, I have a pretty good guess though. I think that someone like you has found a way, whether you subconsciously did it or not, but found a way to channel all the shit that you dealt with growing up, and you found a way to isolate yourself and just and I have a very similar thing. I've learned to apply that to my work ethic at work and business. I've been able to, no matter how dark or bad it is outside, the darker it becomes, actually the better I would be at business. And you strike me as somebody like that.
Yeah, that's a perfect example, because I always try to create my world as this harsh world environment mentally. But I could subdue into this world and create and go through all kind of hell. I could train my ass off. I can diet. And I created this outer world where this is normal. To be unhappy, eating this crap food, going to the gym, training every day, this is effing normal. Those people out there don't get it. They're effing wickos. I mean, they're going to the movies and eating ice cream. They're effed up. They're backwards. So I had to reverse everything. But I was very comfortable in that world, and I knew I did my best at doing that. And, You're right by saying you can single out and then just home in. I mean, that came from my martial arts. It's an individual sport. And I think every sports are individual, and together you make it a bigger or team effort. But I was able to go through that, and I always identified that these harsh environments, like I'm used to this. And I even used to steal this saying from this greater athlete, I'm built for this, and I was a great, I don't know if you guys know who that was, but damn, I just forgot his name, but graduated UCLA, baseball player. Back when it was racial to be, he was the first great baseball player. What's his name? I'm blowing it.
I should know this often, and I can't, and it's at the tip of my tongue right now.
And I didn't know it, but he graduated from UCLA, played football and ran track. But he was a baseball player. They just did a great movie about him a few years ago.
Yes, and that's why it's at the tip of my tongue right now. It's what's it? 54 was
yeah.
It's at the tip of my tongue right now, bro. I'm sorry. I'm the sports guy too. That should
we're both embarrassed. Jackie Robinson.
Yes.
There you go.
And I was just saying, I'm built for this. He endured all of this for a bigger reason, and I'm nowhere near like him or his mental, but the things that I went through, I went through worse.
Now you were a skinny kid. You don't have a massive bone structure, but you have a very interesting and very advantageous shape to your muscles and your body. When you first started working out, did your body just, because you said you were 98 pounds when you graduated high school.
Yeah.
When you started lifting weights, did your body just respond? Did you build muscle easily?
I guess so, but not knowing it. And I remember, at the local gym that I went to that they allowed me to train there, the bigger and older guys would be like, geez, you come in here and you just breathe the weight and you grow. But I didn't see that. I mean, you don't see yourself growing like that. It's that old effect. You take a mouse and you put it in hot water, or a frog, you put it in hot water, it jumps out. You put them in cold water and slowly turns it up, and it just sits in both. So you don't see that changing over every day. And you're looking at these greater people. But I remember they used to always joke like that. You just come in here and just walk around and you grow.
Were they recognizing the talent right out the gates?
Yeah, the talent, and even more so the genetics. And I, in my ignorance, as embarrassing it is to say, I remember them saying, when I was a teenager, wow, you got great genetics. And I look, I'm like, is that like calling me black? What do you mean? I just
like, what does that
mean? Extremely embarrassing. But I didn't know what it meant. I'm like, are you disrespecting me? I mean, I
almost just, like taking away from your work ethic.
Yeah.
Almost.
So I just looked at it as a slur, because unfortunately in that same environment, I would always hear like, wow, Flex, you're great, man. Too bad you're black, or else you'd be great one day. And again, because it was my environment that I came from, I was like, man, I guess nothing I can do about that. Because I was so, just not really honest, but just ignorant about the whole situation. And I didn't get upset. I was just like, geez, can't do nothing about it, like I wish I could, so it was that same environment. So I just was taking it there just being, saying something derogatory again.
And in the 90s, it was an interesting era because you had, on the one hand, you had the very aesthetic type of bodybuilders like you. I could place Sean Ray in that category. And then you had the mass monsters. It was really the birth of the massive. Yeah. There was that era when Dorian Yates took second to Lee, came back like 20 pounds heavier. Yeah. And then you had Nasser and all those guys. And so it was always that conversation. Is it the aesthetic? Is it the symmetry and balance?
Apples, oranges.
Is it the size? What was it like competing against Dorian? And in particular, I want to ask you, how did you feel when because Dorian, I'm not going to lie, was very dominant early on. Yeah. Then he tore his bicep, and he still, and he would win these competitions.
Perfect score still.
And with a perfect score, there's no symmetry there. Yeah. One arm, and but not knocking the guy. Dorian is one of my favorites.
It is what it is.
How did you feel at the time when you were competing and you're seeing this? Did you feel like, okay, this is just politics?
It angered all of us because at the beginning, I was just happy to be there. I didn't know anything. I mean, I didn't come from a gym with magazines and all this. I didn't know crap. I didn't know you can even make money. I didn't turn in pro. Okay, so what? I didn't know anything. So when I won the Arnold Classic, my second pro show, my second win, I didn't freaking know what was going on. I won the Ironman before competing against the great Lee Labrada and Vince Taylor.
Oh man, that's right.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was Vince Taylor.
That's right. You beat Vince Taylor as a rookie, which Vince is one of the greatest.
Yeah. So I didn't know what was going on. I thought, okay, this Ironman, it's a lower caliber show than next weekend, which is the Arnold Classic. He's a seasoned veteran. He just, kind of just F this one off. He's going to come in and just wipe me, So next weekend it was Lee Labrada and him. So I'm like, I'm about to get my ASS tore apart. I go, plus, my analogy, because I messed up, I'm like, they made a mistake. They're going to figure it out this time. I'm probably get last. They're going to figure out I'm a wanker. I'm not really who I am or anything like that. And I ended up winning against both of those guys. And I'm embarrassed on stage that I beat these two guys.
You're kidding me.
So
you looked insane on that show too. I mean, just absolutely.
It's crazy the way you viewed yourself at that time. I bet nobody else would think that. I bet probably people thought you were cocky, if anything.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because again, I guess most introverts, they're extroverts on stage or in public. Because they're trying to hide that. I get it. I know. They said that about Michael Jackson and other great entertainers like that. But when they get out there, you can't imagine that they're uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable in public, period. I'm uncomfortable in my skin. No matter where I am, I'm uncomfortable. So being on stage in my chonies in front of the world, it's just like...
as uncomfortable as it gets.
Yeah, against other guys that I admired. So I just didn't see that. I guess you can almost relate it to the beautiful girl in high school who just thinks she's an ugly duckling. Yeah. Hence, she acts that way. But no, I didn't. Only later did I start kind of getting more aware of who I am, and my arrogance started becoming even worse, and I was my own worst enemy. But competing against Dorian my first time, it was my first Mr. Olympia and my fourth pro show. It was different because everybody else had competed against. I felt okay on stage within myself. I'm uncomfortable and everything, but I didn't feel them. Right, I didn't feel them next to me. So my first time competing against Dorian, I remember thinking, geez, I can feel this guy's presence next to me. I mean, that's how much space he's taking up next to me. And that's all I thought about it. I didn't think I was going to win or anything like that. I know after the show was the first and only time I met the great Serge Olivier.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
And it was just like, I was like shaking in my boots, and we're going into the hotel together, and he opens the door for me. He goes, "You won that show." And I'm like, "Thank you." But I'm like, in my mind, I'm just happy to be there. Did you notice I got second?
Yeah.
But now I see what he's saying because of the matchup and the way the sport was at his time, what should have happened. I can get that now. So as Dorian started having injuries, which it happens, if you run hard all day long, it's just like in a fight. If you got to gauge yourself, don't throw everything, the first time. You got to gauge it, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. But his analogy was go hard all the time, heavy as possible, most intense as possible. So you run into injury. So he was winning with a perfect score. And I was a little still younger than this, but Kevin Levrone and Sean Ray were more aware and vocal. It's like, listen, okay, if you're winning with a perfect score and you have no injuries, and then you have a injury that you can see, that's not perfect anymore. And then when you have another torn muscle, how is that still perfect? So as me and Kevin and Sean were kind of more, I guess, pleasing to watch pose, we're better expressionists of ourselves or whatever. We knew that he wasn't. So how can you beat us in posing when you're not noted to be a better poser than us? And we look at the score at the end of the day, it's 5, 5, 5, 5. That's perfect. I'm like, wow. So honest, for me, I just didn't say nothing. I'd always just say, hey, listen, man, you know what? I'm going for second. I'm trying to hold everybody else off. That was my way of saying, I know it's going to happen. I just can't do anything about it. And me and Dorian got along great, other than Sean Ray and Dorian, and Kevin and Dorian didn't get along at all. So I didn't really want to be disrespectful for something that this man had no control over. If they're allowing things to happen, why am I going to go and shit on his parade? That's not cool. That's not respectful. So I would just try to take it to him on stage. I'm trying to beat him, but I understood what was going to happen.
Yeah, every decade in bodybuilding has that rivalry, right? Lee Haney had his Lee Labrada.
Yeah, he had two, actually, Lee Labrada and Rich the Itch, is what he called him, Rich Gaspari.
Yeah. And then, Dorian had you, but there was also guys like Sean and Kevin, and then later on Nasser.
Yeah. And
among those guys, who are the guys that you always looked out for the most to compete? Like, who are the ones that you were, I guess, most competitive or impressed with?
On two different levels. Personally, it was me and Sean, because we knew each other and we would hang out with each other. I actually, had the opportunity of meeting him before I turned pro, and he was there talking to me when I turned pro. And so I in hindsight, I remember things he said, like, oh my God, man, look here, geez, I wish I had arms like that, this, that, and the other. And also now in past tense, he's done interviews where he's personally said, listen, I always knew that he was better than me. He had everything that I had, and he's like 4 or 5 inches, taller and about, 20 pounds heavier. I always knew I couldn't compete against that, so I would go mentally towards him. So, but Kevin, was on the other side of the lake, and we would only hear about each other because there was only magazines then. So when he beat me the year before I turned pro, so I knew of him, and he already defeated me when other people hadn't, so I'm scared of him. When I went and competed against Sean for the first time as a pro, I won. So that kind of took that out of the equation. So, and me and Kevin had a mutual respect for each other. When we finally met each other, he was a respectful guy. We hit it off. We got along great and everything like that. So it was kind of a fun rivalry with him, because it was never no disrespect. I remember doing an interview. Kevin said something like, I don't knock on doors, I knock them over. and then in another video I did, I said, I hear you knocking, but you can't come in. You know what I mean? So it was like nice stuff like that. So it was really respectful, like not like, you look like a piece of shit. Just it was never that. Right. So we always got along, and even though I got along with everybody on stage, regardless of where they got along with me, because I always understood that why hate an individual, be mad at him? He's just trying to do the same thing you are. He's trying to feed his family and make a living. So why do that? And if you don't get the place and you feel you deserve, don't cuss him out or disrespect him. If you're really a man, go talk to the judges. You pick him for. Right. If you really want to be real, but you're not going to do that because you don't want to mess him up. So I think that's a punk.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a great point.
A real champion is trying to win, and I want to beat the best guy in his best condition, so there's no excuse. I just never got that, and I know a lot of people looked at me like that and was angry. I just never really. So when you talk about that person, you're really showing your weakness. That's like me and you trying to hit on the same girl.
Right.
So, and
I'll talking shit about you.
Yeah, and I'll use me as a bad person. I'm talking shit about you, and she's like, spit your own game. It's like you identifying your weakness. You're making it worse. So I just didn't get that about people. I didn't get it.
Was it common? Was it common to see beefs? What were some of the most common beefs and hate going back and forth between some of the competitors?
Well, I think Sean kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, right? He was at least that's what I used to read about him.
He's just that type of guy.
He's vocal.
Well, being vocal don't mean you're right. Just being you have a big mouth. I mean, everybody have an ASS. It doesn't mean that yours is cleaner than somebody else's. But he was that type of guy. He admitted that he thought that I had, how did he put it, mental weaknesses.
Oh,
so that's why he picked on me mentally, because he knew he couldn't defeat me physically. And
that's psychological warfare.
Yeah, which I get. It is a warfare. But later on, after you read my book, he's like, I had no idea that you've been through all that. I would have never F with you, because I wrote in my book how mad I was, and I knew that we were great friends. So I wrote that I was going to knock on his door one late night, and I knew he would open it because we're friends. And I was going to lock the door and just beat his ass for hours. So this is how effed up I am. And I wrote it in my book. I was just going to beat his ass for hours. Stop, have a drink, eat, rest, and just commence to whipping his ass again. Lock the door and go home. No one's going to know. There's no video cameras in. There's no cell phones. It's going to be his word against mine.
Right.
That's how messed up. When you read the book, he said, I never knew that you had issues like that. I would have never picked on that because I'm like, yeah, bro. I mean, we're from different neighborhoods. What you might say to one guy don't mean anything, but you even look at it. We know it. You come from the wrong neighborhood. Just looking at a guy, you're a fight.
Right.
What are you looking at? What are you looking at? Yeah. What's up? What's up with you? We're walking towards each other and you're making it happen. Another guy, you look at him like, hi.
Yeah.
So it's different. But Sean was the most vocal, but that was just his way of trying to combat his weaknesses in actuality.
Did guys ever get into it behind in the pump up room?
I wanted to hurt him. I tried to hurt him a couple of times. I was stopped. Nobody else really got in fights. I think back then he got knocked out once by another amateur. He was just being disrespectful, and he took this guy's bench, and this guy was a trainer, and he was an amateur. And Sean was getting ready for Olympia, and he took the guy's bench. It was Greg, and his nickname now is the Hammer. So we called him the Hammer after that. But he took his bench, and Greg approached him like, hey, man, what are you talking about? I'm getting ready for Olympia. That was it. So you can't just mouth off to everybody like that, you know what I mean? But that was just him. He was just that type of guy. He's extremely vocal. I mean, on the other side of it, I respect him tremendous as an athlete. I mean, look what he did at his age. He was my color, going up again. He was a smaller guy. So I'm like, I looked up to him, and I actually learned how to pose from him. I would take his videos when I was an amateur, and I would watch his video and then emulate and have my friend video record me trying to do identically the same thing. So in other ways, I had tremendous respect for him. I just didn't believe that you had to be disrespectful to go hard at a guy because you might be crossing that line where we say you got to stay in your own lane. You might get bent up.
Your martial arts flexibility came in handy with your posing, with some of your posing routines.
Yeah,
quite unique. You got a lot of attention.
Yeah, you know what? I just for me that was.
I mean, doing the splits on stage while hitting a.
I didn't even know. You know what? That was
crazy because
you were the first to do that, right?
I got to be honest. I wasn't. Phil Hill, Professor Phil Hill was the first to ever do the splits.
Wasn't Phil Hill a stripper back in the day? Was that Phil Hill or was that someone else?
I don't know if it was him. I know it was a couple other bodybuilders. I'm aware that it was a few, but I don't know about Phil. But I met Phil when I was an amateur. He came and guest posed in Fresno. And if you know anything about him, he has probably the biggest quads in just the history of the sport.
I remember that's right. I'm thinking the wrong guy. That's right. Right.
And I remember his friend. I was just looking at him, just like just young little kid. I think I was like maybe 16 years old. And his friend goes, "Say hi to him." I'm like terrified, shaking. He goes, "Hey man, how you doing?" He's just super nice. He goes, "We're talking," and my closest friend, my martial artist, instructor and mentor, Ty McGuire is with me. He goes, "Why don't you guys come out and have lunch with us?" I'm like. So we're talking, and he's like, "So you compete, huh?" He goes, "You can." So we're talking. Somehow we got into the splits, because he did it on stage. I'm like, how did you do that? He goes, "Can you do it?" I'm like, "Yeah." Because you ought to try it. I'm like, who cares if I do it? He goes, "Try it." And I wasn't thinking about it. And one time I was on stage, I was going into my routine, and I just spun, and my legs started to open. I just went into the splits, and the crowd went crazy. I'm like, but I'm a martial artist. Who gives a damn? Everybody can do the splits. I just didn't think of it like that. But
everybody can't do the splits.
Well, in my world, my world of martial arts, everybody can do the splits and more. But
that's true.
I just posing was my way of trying to communicate with the crowd. I always pick music for a certain reason. I would always come off with very slow music because I understand when slow music comes on, people pay attention. They're quiet. It's respectful, right? When rival music or hard music or whatever is on, people are amped, right? They're up. So I always pick slow music because that was my way of saying, shut up, sit down and listen. I want to display something. But I got it just like a movie. You can't have a slow movie the whole time. You got to bring them out hyped or else you're going to walk away, just inspired. So the last 30 seconds, I would always switch over to hardcore music or something amped up or whatever the hardest, rap was back then because I wanted people to go away amped, and that was just my way of just trying to,
Awesome.
So I wanted to ask you something so I competed, right? So I'm a pro men's physique athlete.
Copy that.
And I was told before I got into it that, politics this, politics that, right? And
What isn't politics in?
Right.
Just tell me that.
And,
just name one
and
thing.
everything, right? And everything.
Yeah. I mean, even a husband and wife. What is it? I mean, there's politicking going on, right?
Which is why it didn't scare me away. In fact, it only motivated me more to prove to everybody, watch me do this all by myself with no coach or no team. Mm-hmm. Now, my first experience with it, of feeling it, was my first place win. My first place win was in Sacramento, and in Sacramento, I didn't know any of this at the time, but I take first place, and then I'm going for the overall. And when I walked up to win the overall, and I'm a very objective person, so if I see another guy that I think, and I'm sure you're the same way, that's got a better physique, it's like respect.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And I'm getting ready to walk up against for these two guys overall wise, and it's not even close. I'm going to walk away with this sword, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get it.
Right.
And I don't, and I'm like, what the fuck? I have no idea. And then I get everybody coming up to me afterwards, and they go like, you know who the two athletes that you were going against, who they are, right? I'm like, no, they're amateurs or nobody I know, right? Yeah. And they're like, well, they both are Jeremy Buendia and Hani Ramrod's athletes. This is their FBF athletes. This is a Sacramento show. Hani is the #1 sponsor for the show. Yeah. And so I got my first taste of, this is how that works.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of this? Did you see a lot of this? And can you explain to people exactly that?
Yeah, it happens. And like we just clarified, what doesn't it happen in, whether you know it or not? What doesn't it happen in? Somebody else getting a raise and you should have, or, even in police officer, my friend, always deserved to be a detective, but he never did because, everybody didn't like him as much, and finally he got it. So let's be clear, it happens in all aspects of life. This is no different. Sorry, our sport is no different than that. I didn't really have it happen to me as an amateur. I don't know why. I just flew under the radar. When I got to a pro, I ran into it, and it's documented now. I remember a great writer, Peter McGuff, wrote about me and Kevin competing, and I always wondered why does Kevin combat me so well, because I didn't really think he was my worst adversary physique wise. But it would be a lot of shows that he would win that I would be competing. I'm like, wow. So we used to say, hey, he's one of those East Coast guys. All the judges from the East Coast, they get more love, and we're over here on the West Coast, and, we don't get that much love. So I always felt that way. But I see it more prevalent now.
Especially with social media.
Let's talk about it now. I mean, do you follow the sport now? I mean,
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay,
I don't remember all the names, and honestly, it's different now. I know what Lee Labrada, because I remember him telling me when I was still competing, I don't even go to shows no more. I go, why? And he goes, if you're competing, I'll come to see you, but it's different.
It is.
So they're disenchanted. I remember even, you would know who the USA champion was. I don't even know who won for the last 10 years, and no one does. And even a champion, no disrespect to know, it's just facts. It's just my opinion. It doesn't mean I'm right or wrong. You asked me a question, it's my opinion. Let's clear that. But that champion would go on to do something very quickly. You got guys now who turn pro and they don't even do well as a pro. That means you're probably not meant to be up there with them yet. You're not pro quality yet. So,
well, back in the 90s, and I've heard this argument all the time, but I was a fan and I compare them all the time. And I see in the 90s, you guys there was a lot of size, but there was insane levels of conditioning.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like the guys today, although they're massive and they got the big old bubbly muscles and all that stuff, they don't seem to hit the same level of conditioning that the guys in the 90s did.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in, was it the diuretic use? Was it that some people got, because you had Paul Dillette cramp up on stage.
Yeah,
and you had,
good friend. He was my roommate for a while.
You had, what's his name? Andreas Munzer pass away, and he was
Andreas Munzer was from, because I competed with him. It was from a drug that helps us.
Cytomel,
yeah. So that's why, So it's not really a diuretic. What its side effect is that it stops you from your blood from thickening when you're bleeding.
And you just bled out.
Exactly. When he got on the operating table, because he had a problem before then. So when they opened him up, just like they don't want you to take aspirin before surgery. So that was kind of the situation with that. Once they open him up, systematically things start.
But you had, what's his name? Benaziza?
Yeah, Muhammad.
He died on stage.
Yeah.
Were you guys using different substances or more diuretics than they are now? Was it the diet? Like, because you guys were shredded. I mean, and hard, very, very grainy looking.
Yeah.
They don't have that same quality, it seems, today.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So the difference is those diuretics are still out there, but there's better ones now. Technology's, come on, you're talking 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Technology is better. So I think the problem is that just the homework wasn't put into it. And I can relate this to every sport. You got a kid wants to play basketball. He's trying to learn the crossovers, this, that, and other. You don't even know the basics. They don't care about the basics. Back in our era, we respected Arnold and the people who came before us, so we understood the hard work.
I use the same analogy.
We knew that it's going to take a couple of years to get there. Talk to any kid in bodybuilding right now. Yeah, I'm going to turn pro next year. I'm going to be in Olympia. Really? But it's not just that. You look at high school players, they think they're, have the respect of a pro ball and they're acting like it. So I don't think that work and respect is put down like we did. I mean, this
is what I found when I got into men's physique. I was floored by, I'm very transparent about my steroid use and how I used
too.
to.
It is what it is.
Right. So I'm very open about it. And one of the things that I was blown away by was, I'm at the men's physique level, the dosages that were
still to this day, we're blown away.
I was like
blown away.
I mean, I took 250 milligrams. I peaked at 400 milligrams, and I was told when I hit stage that I was looking too much like a bodybuilder, so I had to bring the dosage down.
Yeah.
And then I talked to a lot of these kids that are getting in it, and they're taking grams of shit. And I'm like, to be a men's physique, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's shocking because when men's physique first hit, we were blown away with their condition. I'm talking stride it back like mine was. And I'm like, so to see so many, it's like, that's not by design.
Yeah.
Well, that is by design. That's not by genetics because they're just drying out. So they're like, wow, these guys are going to have a tough time in about 5 or 6 years when they, it's a sport old enough where problems are going to start happening. Because, unless you're, unfortunately like Muhammad or something like that, and even him, it's not his first probably time of ever cramping. Right. I mean, I guess they call it like a drug person who's taking drugs chasing their high. So as they're chasing that high, they probably run into some problems, but they beat it. So they know they can go up to that limit or they're comfortable. So you keep pushing that envelope, and that's with anything. But I'm floored that the doses that they use, because I mean, I even remember in my time other guys saying, "Man, when you gonna stop taking a candy?" And I'm like, "Candy," and they would explain what they're taking. I'm like, I'm okay with the candy, I guess, But I did start going harder as I got older. But even those doses is nothing compared to the guys taking down. So to answer your question, as far as the difference is, I think that hard work, and it's come on, I mean, it's hard to be a pro bodybuilder. I mean, everything got to be on point.
24 hours a day.
It is. And everything got to be on point, not just your upper body. It got to match and this, that, and other. They got to flow. So you got to have the right matches in the left. I mean, it's rough. And that don't happen overnight. Listen, I mean, a 16-year-old, two 16-year-olds, one have facial hair and one don't. That's just their gift. But it took you 16 years to get there. So how are you going to accelerate, to becoming to this man and then this Superman and then what we would jokingly say, this demigod within, a few years. So that's rough. And it's a lot of hard work and dedication and perseverance. I just don't really think that's there now. And I don't think they have to go to that degree because there's other categories so that you don't have to go that hard. I'm not saying that Jeremy or anyone else don't go full tilt to what they're doing, but it's not where we were, and God bless them. And I'm happy that they have all these physique classes now, because now you're not forcing people to try to become something that they weren't. You even go back to say, even though I say certain things about Sean, I respect him from other men, take him and put a 212 class. He would have never lost. Sean didn't compete over 215. So imagine him back then. If there was a 212, right, he would be a 30-time Mr. Olympia. He's beaten some of us at times. So I think they're smarter now, and having all these classes, I don't look bad at it. It's smarter now because you're not putting people in positions where they have to put themselves in such harm's way. But that's your choice if you went there, because you don't have to. Like you said, really, men's physique? I mean, when it first started, you can go out and look at a beach body guy, right? Just a real pure guy who's just surf for beach. He's going to look like mint condition, right? That's what I thought it was.
It was for a minute.
Yeah, so probably your look of what they said you were being too big or looking like a bodybuilder, a better men's physique guy would wipe that look away right now.
Oh yeah,
no,
it evolved to that.
Yeah,
it definitely. So when I came out, and it was funny too because I heard this story later on, not long, but a year or two after I left competing. I was talking to one of the judges. I had an athlete, a competitor that was competing, and had a chance to talk to him. And I walked over and said hi to him, introduced myself, and he goes, "Oh, I remember you." And he tells me the story of my very first show, where I came out in the morning, and when I came out in the morning, I didn't even come out first call out, and I came with it. So I trained really hard. I've been training for 15 years, building my body. I came in dialed, and I had a lot of pro buddies and coaches, and my theory was I want to hit stage as an amateur, already ready to be at the professional level.
I got to stop you right there. That was one of my analogies, and even with my team that I work with guys now, you want to stand on stage as an amateur and have the judges look at you and like, this kid, don't get him out of here. He's pro quality. That's when you're ready to go on stage as a pro. That's how I feel. I felt like I had so much work to put in before I even get on the stage. And then everyone tried to tell me like, oh, you need to get the jitters out and you're posing. And it's like, I don't even want to get up there. Don't go up there if you're not ready.
Yeah, like, I don't want to do that. Right, that's how I felt. And so I get up there knowing that I had a dominant physique, and then I don't get call out in first call outs. And so I'm like, what the fuck? In the night show, they jump me to first call-outs, and I get placed fourth place, which those that know about competing know that if you don't finish in the top three, it doesn't qualify you for nationals.
Yeah, I'm effed up. If you don't finish first, you just lost.
Right. And I'm pissed about it, but I'm like, whatever, it is what it is, and it's my first show. But I get a chance to talk to this judge, and he remembers me because of the arguments behind scenes about my physique. And he name drops, and I promised him on radio I would never roll the judges under the bus. Yeah. But 100%, they wanted me to come back. It was my first show. They wanted me to pay for another show and show my face again.
Pay your dues.
Pay my dues, and they weren't going to place me in the top three. They'd give me one spot out from that, even though arguably I probably had the number one physique out there. It's pretty crazy to see. And then I don't know if you saw recently what happened with Mark Bell. Mark Bell just competed.
I didn't.
Okay, so Mark Bell.
I know who he is, though, but I didn't.
So Mark Bell just competed. He's a longtime powerlifter guy. I know he takes a lot of gear. He definitely does not have a bodybuilder's physique. And Hani was his coach, and he took first place in his first show.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, you have to check it out on.
Wow.
Yeah, check it out. I was hoping you'd seen it so we could talk about it a little.
Because I know all the brothers. Yeah, because they're mostly all powerlifters, right?
Yeah.
I know all of them.
Yeah.
So, wow, I didn't know that.
So you see a lot of that going. I feel like that's happening more, and that's why I was curious when you were.
I think today, when you go to compete and you have 1 million followers on Instagram, or you've got a huge social media following, you're going to get looked at more and maybe win as a result.
I don't think in bodybuilding that's not going to work because they combat each other. You might be able to make more money or have more what I call a draw, right? Because people ask me all the time, how can I get a sponsorship? Well, what's your draw? What do you mean by that? Do you walk in a room and people migrate towards you? That's what people are looking toward to spin, because they might migrate towards you, then they can cross spin that over to their product. So whatever it is, you have to have that, what we call, when you walk in a room, you have presence.
X factor.
Yeah, or X factor. So that's not going to work so much because they really combat each other. And there's never been, and I don't think there ever will be, a person who has an amazing, I have some friends, really, really good friend of mine, and he's just off the chain with, his physique. He had competed before, Ulysses, right? 5.3 million followers, right? And we had a chance to talk finally after knowing each other for almost 2 decades. We talked and hung out, in England. We were there, and he just spit the whole game to me internet-wise. And I'm like, wow, is that indeed? Because, man, it's a business, you can make a business out of this. But he competed, he competed at a different level. He won all the time, but it wasn't because, you look at his physique, he won because of that. So his physique helped him be better as an internet personality, but it won't cross over and help you be a better athlete because it's judged differently. No one cares about how many followers you have. Let's use the example, Ronnie Coleman. I think he has like maybe 2 million followers. Come on, he's the king. Ronnie will always be the king. I hope I'm alive and hope it's safe to look at the person who beats his best physique ever. I mean, I just don't foresee that. But
bro, what was that? What was that? Talking about Ronnie, what was that like? You were supposed to win that. I remember because I was, like I said, I was a big fan.
Yeah,
I remember
too.
Oh shit! And I'm like, oh shit, Dorian's, he's retiring. Flex Wheeler's gonna be Mr. Olympia. Out of nowhere, because Ronnie, I think before that was like
10th or something.
Yeah,
like that.
like he was seventh place.
Yeah.
Then comes Ronnie, and he looked like a completely different person. Yeah. And he wins. What was that like to see that change, and then not win that?
I mean, it's the first talking about it on your show, but I got to be honest. We knew it was going to happen. I mean, the year before that, me and Ronnie have always been super close. You just some guys you just meet immediately. You guys just hit it off.
Yeah.
Some guys you just know, I ain't going to never like you, and I don't care, and I want you to know it. It's just, I don't know why.
It is what it is.
Yeah. So me and Ronnie had always been great friends. Traveling all over the world and this, that, and the other, competing. And, it's been talked about, and he's acknowledged to it. He finally came to me. He was like, man, look, I'm tired of getting my ass whooped. What you doing? Because Ronnie was always natural. That's one thing a lot of people didn't know. Ronnie turned pro and competed as a pro naturally for a long time.
You know what? I used to read that, and that was so hard to believe.
That's fucking true.
It's true.
I have heard that too.
It's true.
You know what happens when you take a guy like that and then fucking put him on some gear?
Hence back to what I said before, putting in the hard work before you go there.
Wow.
So same thing with Kai Green. I know Kai Green very well. He was natural for a long time, competing until, whatever. So Ronnie came to me, and I'm like, okay, because I learned from people. So I never been effed up like, damn, I ain't going to tell him he might beat me one day. So we sat down, and I laid the whole game work down. And next year, he started doing well. I remember he actually beat me in the first competition ever, and we're over in Canada, and he beat me. And I'm like, fuck. But I was off, right? I was off, but he still, and it was funny because he was talking about like, damn, Flex, because we're good friends, right? So he's like, damn, Flex, I beat you. Damn, they must think I'm good. I beat you. So it's not like, man, I beat you. Yeah. It's my boy talking to me, right? Yeah. So I'm like, Ronnie, you're good. So the next weekend, we ended up competing again, and I was in Florida at the Florida Pro Cup, and I ended up winning. And then it was a big show the following weekend, and I did champion back in those days. And I'm like, fuck. And he's right on my ASS. And he's never been in a call out with me. I mean, he's been like third or fourth call out, and I've always been call out number one. So I'm like, huh. And then, I beat him in that show. And then the following year, I watched his physique change. We were working with the same person for our diets, and, Chad Nichols. And Chad had actually told me, he goes, wow, Ronnie can't handle your diet. I go, what do you mean? He goes, because I go 0 carbs for a long time. I can just do that. I don't go into what they call
ketosis, or
it's really dangerous. Hypoglycemic.
Oh, right.
When you don't have enough carbs, I can just handle it for whatever reason. He goes, I dropped Ronnie down to like 200, grams of carbs, and I almost passed out. He goes, Mashad, I can't do this shit. So so his low was like 500-600. I'm like, everybody's different, right? Yeah. But I just watched him change, and Chad would send me pictures of Ronnie getting ready, and I'm like, God dang, we still thinking, well, you're going to beat him because you're shaped, this, that, and the other. But I'm like, so I remember being on stage, 1998, and, I was in the first call out. I think Ronnie was in the third call out. We never even met each other on stage, but I remember watching him and standing behind him like, God dang. And I, here he is doing a crab pose, and his back is striated from top to bottom, his glutes. And I'm thinking to myself, what are they missing with him? He looks better than I do. I'm like, fuck, I hope they don't catch up and figure this out, right? So, whatever happened.
So you knew it was coming.
Yeah, and I mean, it's been talked about before, and I got to be honest, regardless who I upset or not. I mean, it's noted. But I had I signed with another company 15 days before that Olympia. So I left the Weider organization, and I joined this company called Biochem. And me and Ronnie took a ride back. We took a ride back because we had to do our little pictures after the pre-judge, and we took a ride back. He's like, wow, man, Joe Weider, sat down and talked to me. I'm like, cool, man. Big deal. He goes, Flex, I've been a pro longer than you. Joe Weider, I never even said my name. I'm like, well, shit, he should. Look at you, Ronnie. So I'm like, so he goes, well, he offered me a contract. I'm like, take it, dude, take it. So we actually end up taking a taxi back to the final show. He's like, man, I signed with Joe Weider. I'm like, hell yeah, good for you, Ronnie. So, wow. So like I said, he was in call out 3 and I was in call out 1. So if you look at the score, I have 5 and his has got to be like a 7 or a 9 or something like that. So mathematically, it was weird because the next 2 rounds were supposed to be, it's no one who can beat me at that time. And I was posing because I was a great poser. And Ronnie's not really noted as a great poser. And then pose down, which is just the presence you create. And I was kind of pretty good at that. So, but he perfect scored me in those and ended up winning by 2 points. And I was like, wow. So
just after he signed the contract.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
Well, that would have been a great example of that politics shit I was talking to you about.
But I tell you what, though. You lost to I mean, and then you went on to win and dominate.
So I wasn't mad at that, and I knew I effed off that show. I knew I'd do it. I knew I could have looked better. I mean, I used to dress in great Michael Jordan, training gear so that I can go to the strip club right after training hard, so I could still look decent. I wasn't there. I had that mentality that I could never be number one. Hey, listen, if you show up at the Arnold or the Ironman or anything else, I'm going to hand you your ass. But dude, I was just had a mental block about the Olympia. I just never perceived. I didn't accept myself as number one. So he won that show and he deserved to. The next year I came in actually 15 pounds heavier. So that's pretty hard to do when you're in your prime, to come in 15 pounds heavier and in better shape. And for whatever reason, he kind of missed his peak. He wasn't there. So back then we were really close with each other. Whether I wanted to beat you or not, or that other person, we were close. We talked, we hung out, and we traveled the world together. It's not like now. So immediately when we take off our clothes backstage, we know what's going on. When we have a look at you, like, as soon as you take your clothes off, we already know, who's the challenge, who's not. So, I got undressed, we're working out, and Ronnie finally get undressed and like, oh my God, you got him. So everybody's running out to me back. You got him. You got his ass. I'm like, I got him, right? Yeah. So I go off on stage and, big story is he perfect scores me. So I'm like, So that's the year that I took off my medallions on stage. Right. So, but it hit me. It finally dawned on me like, okay, I'm better than that. So my thing was I took off these medallions because I'm sure you've seen it at a show before where a person's rewarded first and another person rewarded second. Oh, we made a mistake. But meanwhile, the person who took second, he's pissed. And the person who won, it's like, oh, we made a mistake. Number 1 goes to 2, number 2 goes to 1. Now all of a sudden their atmosphere changes. The guy who thought he won, now he's pissed. The guy who thought he's lost, he feels like a champion. Why? Because of the medallion, because of what they put around your neck, because of what they said.
Right.
So it all came to me right then. I'm like, I'm not number 2. This represents number 2. I'm not number 2. I'm number 1. You're not going to make me feel like I'm number 2. So that's all it was. And then I went to Ronnie and everybody's like, what did you say to him when you kneeled down? I'm like, man, I love you. Congratulations. And I jokingly said, I'm not going to be at your after party, right? Because why? Why would I go? I'm pissed. I'm hurt. Why would I go and my best friend just won Miss Olympia and I'm going to go there and sulk and look around and make him feel uncomfortable?
Sure.
Right. Take your ass home.
Yeah.
So I went back to the hotel with my people and we ate pizza, so I can be myself. So, but I just realized that. But it helped me because if he would have won by 1 point or 2 points again, I'm like, I can chase that down. I can go harder. But by him winning by a perfect score, I'm like, okay, he's out of reach now. It's just, it is what it is. So what my job is now is to hold everybody off at second place instead of chasing it. So, just reality came to me.
Now pro bodybuilding for a long time has been, obviously very competitive, but also a sport where people attribute a lot of the success of the athletes to things like anabolic steroids and insulin and growth hormone and all that stuff.
Right. Let's get into it.
It wasn't
about to blow your water. Let's get into it.
Well, you already did talking about Ronnie Coleman fucking being natural and Kai being natural.
That blew my mind.
Because I know that's been a rumor for a long time. Yeah,
not a rumor.
But that's fucking and we talk on our show a lot about that people, they look at these competitors and they think it's just the drugs. It's like you have no idea the genetics and the hard work that those people have to put in.
So, Ronnie, everything, I'm open on a pro level. I don't talk to amateurs about it, and I don't talk just to anyone about it because I understand that my words have power, and if I say certain things of what I've done, every kid's going to run off and take that thinking they're going to be the next. So I can't do that.
Sure.
But on a pro level, I'm very honest with anyone who asks me. So there's many pros who are competing now and retired. I told the exact same thing. Why is it that Ronnie had changed his whole metamorphosis? He's just that guy. He had that inside him, and it was just waiting to explode. That was his gift. Nothing you can do about it. My brother, Robert, he competed as natural all his whole life. And he's always told me, and here I am, Flex Wheeler. So he knows I know everything. He's never asked me. He goes, I want to stay natural. I'm like, stay natural, man. Good for you. Everybody who looks at him think like, come on, dog. You know he's on something, man. He's your brother. You know you're giving him the best. He's natural. And you look at his physique. I'll give you guys his Instagram later. He's natural. It's guys who just have that gift. It is what it is.
Oh, man, I've known guys. I've run gyms for more than half my life, and I've known guys to take a gram or more of testosterone a week who don't look like shit, literally. Like you look at them and they don't look like almost anything at all.
Yeah.
And then I know guys that there was this one guy who used to work for me. I talk about him all the time on the show. He was a porter, so he cleaned the bathrooms and stuff. And this dude didn't have much money. He would eat a Pop-Tart for breakfast and cheeseburger for lunch. And he'd go do skull crushers with 225 and
like my brother.
19-inch arms.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's insane. But something happened in bodybuilding.
Must be something in Pop-Tarts. I'm serious. It gotta be.
Maybe. But then something else happened in bodybuilding where for a long time it was substances that made you build muscle, testosterone, their derivatives, growth hormone, insulin. And then all of a sudden people started injecting an oil that did nothing but make you look bigger.
Right.
Synthol.
Yeah.
Did that start happening in the 90s? Because there was a lot of speculation that guys like, I think it was Ernie Taylor and other people were using them because their arms look so crazy.
Yeah.
Is that when that started to enter the scene a little bit?
Yeah, I think it was. My awareness came in the 90s. So it doesn't mean that it wasn't in the 80s, but I wasn't in the 80s, so I can't even claim. I mean, Arnold and everybody else, even though Arnold admits that he's took things, could you ask me? I wasn't there. I wasn't in his era, so I don't know that, right? So I was in the 90s. I'm aware that's when I first heard of it. But before then, it was a better one called Encycline that did everything even better. You didn't get the bloat or anything like that.
That's the one you inject and it makes you swollen from it.
Yeah. But all the striations stayed. So it was one before that. And I was aware of that one also.
I remember reading about that.
But Kevin Levrone bought the entire stock out. No lie. He did. He did. He bought the entire stock out of it.
Yeah, I read.
Imagine how much expensive that was.
And and you had to do it like right before you went on stage, right?
Yeah.
So like backstage, you just like 100 shots up and down your body to make it look.
Synthol, and I think it had a whole bunch of other names came into play. And a lot of us use it. I'm very open that I use it back. Then I want to try it and see what happened and everything. Do
you think it helped your physique or hindered your physique?
No, I think it hindered back now. Even my athletes now who want to, I tell them, hey, listen, you got to go get somebody else then because I can't be your guy. I'm not there. I don't believe in insulin. I don't believe in doing anything or having a person take anything that if you mess up just a little, you die.
Right.
So insulin is one of those things. Mess up just a little. You can have the greatest surgeons right around you. You're dying. Systematically, things are going to fail. Diuretics is next in line, but you can control that. Just be smart. But you got to understand this. If me and him go to the club and, he's more of a drinker. I'm not like, all right, we're going to start with this. We're going to start with that. And, his third one, he feels great. My third one, my second one, my blood alcohol, and I'm about to pass out. Everyone is different. So don't take something just because somebody else did. But the whole Synthol thing, that I think it was a bad thing for the sport, but
because it's not muscle, and you see some guys.
That's the argument. I'm glad you said that. So my thing is people like, oh, you took Synthol. I'm like, huh, okay, wow. So what's the difference with steroids, quote unquote? Because if you use the word steroids, it's pretty primitive. My son, when he was a kid, when he was a little boy, he was on steroid because he had asthma. So
cholesterol is a steroid.
Yeah, so I can be an ass and talk steroids. So that's why I use this word sports technology drugs because it's very technical, and you use it for sports reasons. So, that was my question. Like, wow, so that doesn't belong to him. That's why it's bad. I'm like, okay, what's the difference with steroids then? Because none of that shit belongs to him. So I know that there's certain quote unquote steroids that you can use and it causes an inflammatory effect. And certain places where you inject it, it causes that effect. And people use it for that same reason for muscle hypertrophy. So what's the difference?
Yeah, it's all using technology to
So what's the difference?
change the way you look.
So, but I still don't agree with the whole recycling thing because it actually does more damage. People have had heart attacks. And,
Oh, really?
And yeah, because it's an oil. So eventually that oil, the body has to absorb that oil. And I know for,
Oh, didn't Milos Sarcev, didn't he have a heart attack or something
no,
from
it
that?
wasn't Milos. It was a few other guys. I don't want to say their name, but I know it wasn't Milos because
Okay.
I mean, there's some people who pass away from it. So you imagine that thick oil that doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere, and it's so thick. And if you understand, how the body is, the muscle fibers are tiny. Hence why we couldn't use certain drugs that they use for horses. Remember back in the days, there was a lot of drugs that people that they use for horses because, wow, horse is incredible. Their muscle fibers are huge, right? So that oil can go through that. But so it would just sit there. So people would get these used, what do they call it? Abscess and everything, and would have to have body parts cut out. So it just doesn't make sense to use it. And when you ask about myself, before I used them, I tried it in my shoulders and my arms, and I just want to see. So my arms actually start tearing the skin. So it always did. My skin, you can see stretch marks now all through here, even in my forearm. So it always tore because I'm naturally a skinny guy. But what I seen is that, my skin start tearing more and it start looking more bloated and whatever. And I didn't have, the separation that I normally have. So I'm like, it's not working for me. I won't use it anymore. But everyone has these gifts. We used to say, he's a delt monster, or he's a quad monster, or look quadzilla, because everybody has their gift. So for me, I'm always arm dominant. Even as a kid, you go back, if you're a historian, go back and look at my kids. All it has is biceps, triceps, and balls. That was it, and still now, so people, you use Synthol. I'm like, okay. I use a lot of crap. You still using them? I'm like, really? Why? Look at your arms. They don't look real. I'm like, wow. So even now,
Yeah,
look at this.
that.
Cross rates and everything. Yeah. So what they said is, even now, like, you're retired, you're still, I'm like, really? And when I do that, I'm like, you just figured out a way to inject the oil deep into the muscle where the striasis doesn't go. I'm like, yeah. So as an ass, Stan Efferty, White Rhino is what I call him, had his joke. So he does this video. Yes, we created this great oil and Flex has perfected it. Please contact us at this email.
Let's make some money off of this.
Thousands and thousands of emails. I had to do a rebuttal. Like, he's
so it was
joking.
a joke.
I'm like, he's joking, you dicks. He's joking with you guys, but it showed me how many people really. Yeah. So anyway,
bodybuilding's always been that. It's first of all, a lot of people enter it because they either feel bad about themselves or want to build an armor. It's a very solitary sport. It's extremely competitive, and people are always trying to take it to the next level. And I've always said this: the good and the bad. Let's talk about the good. Like, bodybuilders are the pioneers of learning how things affect the body. They're the pioneers about how to.
We used to always joke
work
like
your
we
diet.
have our own little white coat in a backyard.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, a lot of these Olympic athletes and stuff, they have a lot. They should thank the bodybuilders for being the kind of pioneers for trying a lot of this stuff. What do you think is going on nowadays? I see all these bodybuilders going over to the Middle East and gaining like 30 pounds all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Is there something like we're asking everybody, like, are they taking something different?
I don't know. I mean, I know all of them. I know the owner. I've been to the gym before, and I hear these rumors that they started making these jokes, and jokes always come from somewhere. Oh, it's an anabolic chicken. So it's a joke that they're putting more anabolics in the chicken, whatever. But so. My thing about the drug thing, as we're talking about it, I'm like, let me blow your mind here. Here's my thought on it. My argument always was, if we use to try to better ourselves, to take care of our family, to make a means, and we're pretty healthy, we're more aware of the body. Why is it not acceptable? And later on, it became where, testosterone became a contraceptive. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, okay. So now it's okay to give a man, testosterone at a certain level because it's a contraceptive. I'm like, really? So you assholes just figure out a way to make it better when you want. But how do you make this better? Like, how many people, how dangerous is, quote unquote, let's continue using the word steroid because it's more well known. How dangerous is it? Oh, it's so dangerous, really? So I can give you an overdose of any steroid, an overdose. You're not going to die. If it's your first time overdose, nothing's never going to happen to you. If you overdose a lot of times later on in life, you may have complications of your liver, your kidney. I can give you an overdose of aspirin and kill you. I can give you an overdose of sugar and I can kill you dead. I can give you an overdose of alcohol and I can kill you dead.
Birth control is more dangerous.
Birth control is a form of steroids because some women back in the old days used to use it because birth control, as women know, they all come in different strengths. And you got to figure it out. And same thing, I can give you an overdose of birth control and kill you. So really, what's more dangerous? So it's not about what's more dangerous, it's what's acceptable. So I'm like, okay, so drugs, and they're bad. How about alcohol? Oh, because they can sell it legal. I'm like, wow, I remember a point in time when a prohibition, it wasn't legal, but they figured out a way to make tax of, so it's legal, so it's not as dangerous. Because if I remember correctly, alcohol has killed more people than anything, and other people's kids and children and husbands and wives. So I go, so why is that still okay? You know, let's talk about cigarettes.
Yeah, my argument against anabolics has always been, when people ask me, should I use them? My argument's always, well, if you're going off of them, it's what's going to be the tough part, and the physiological aspects of going off of them, and
mentally too.
And the mental. I don't know how many. A lot of people are not prepared, or at least the types of people who are prepared to take anabolics to change their body. Forget competitors; you're not even on stage, because most people that take anabolic steroids don't even compete.
Yeah.
Those people that take them are the same people who are going to have the hardest time going off mentally, to watch your gains go away and all that stuff. And then, of course, No,
physiologically and mentally is going to be the worst thing. But I just want to quickly, because I don't want to be too long on this drug thing, is cigarettes. We've known them to have the most deadly things in them. Why can they still sell them? The Surgeon General says right there that this will kill you, but it's still there. Let's go deeper. Cocaine. Why don't you chase the people who do that? I get it. Because if you chase those people, you're going to end up at the CEO of some great company or some congressman or some president of some. So, I get it now. So it's not about how bad it is. It's about what demographics that you guys put it at. Because right now we already know that cigarettes and alcohol is the top of the list. But steroid is banned and it's bad and boo-hoo and all this, that, and other. But it's okay that you... No disrespect to anybody, because my thing is like cut your own backyard. Right? So you understand, cut your own backyard. But now saying that, for a person who goes out and get drunk off their ass is not worse for them, because that's actual drug for them. They can't do without it, right? And you have alcoholics, which, for a very different reasons, or a person who smokes. We know that it's a chain smoke, it's a drug, but those aren't worse. But they look at our sport or any sport that utilize, sports technology as the black widow of everything.
Oh, it's like what you said. It's because it's illegal. So there's a stigma that's around it. And
but it's even more than that, though.
It's like you compare,
because it is legal,
right? Well, we talked about marijuana when you first walked in. I offered you a joint. You said no thanks. And I mean, that's a perfect example. I mean, look how harmless that is, and that's been illegal forever. There's been a stigma around that.
Oh, they
forever.
Finally got it legal.
Right.
That's the thing.
It's all about who they. It's all about perception. I mean, look, here's the deal. You talked about cocaine earlier. The penalties for crack are far higher than the penalties for cocaine.
That's fact.
Who uses cocaine and who uses crack? And
I remember seeing the studies on that on TV. It blew me away.
It's all about who they're trying to target. That's all it is.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. And you're an athlete. You're on TV. You're representing all the,
And how that actually really happened is because, thankfully during my era, it was never illegal. It's a class 3 felony now. I'm not a great person, but, as far as knowing knowledge, but I was an officer before I graduated from post in 86, and I worked for the sheriff department, so I'm aware of some things. So back then, I remember my teachers, my instructors asked me about the drug. And at that time, it had just, got to where it was about to be a class 3. And I warned them, like, this is coming down as a class 3. Okay, never mind. But before it was not a class 3. We can travel with it. It's a class 3 now. And the reason why is because, unfortunately, it's very, very popular, right? Extremely popular. So, and to give you historically, it was actually back in the Hitler days when it was invented, right? That was one of the first testing of that. The SS troops, they gave them drugs to be able to do things that ought not to. I wasn't there at the first Olympics. Hitler was. Hence the drug was. So all since then, I remember watching football and baseball and, these boys are just big old country fat boys with 23-inch necks, just really? I wasn't there, but I knew the drug was there. But my point is, actually I lost my thought.
No worries. Let me,
I got it. So my point is, it's not about that. It's a deeper thing than that. The whole drug thing. It's not about it. I mean, our number one saying here globally is take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning. We're a drug population. Take 2 aspirin and call me. I don't want to deal with you. Take 2 aspirin and see what happens. That's a drug right there. And it's just the way it is, but it's sad.
Don't get me started on that. I'll tell you, it's the most insane assault on humanity to throw someone in jail for doing something to themselves. That's very strange.
Right. And I'll end it on what I was going to get at is the reason why it became a class 3 felony and so indicative now is because it got involved with cocaine and heroin and all those drugs. So the same sellers who were selling cocaine, heroin, and all that start selling steroids because it's very profitable. They don't care about the drug. They care about profit. So when that happened and the mafia started getting into selling it high, it got on their radar.
Interesting. I did not know that.
That is interesting.
I wanted to ask you how you just recently competed in a classic competition. I wanted to ask you about your health because I know you had mentioned earlier in the episode you had to have kidney replacement. And people, I'm sure, ask you all the time. I know the answer because I'm familiar with you, but for our audience, A, was it due to any anabolic steroid use or your bodybuilding lifestyle? And then B, how's your health now in regards to?
No, it's completely doing my sex habit. I used to just do freaky things and it was just damaging on the body. But it's a disease. It's focal glomeruloscoliosis. Don't know how I contracted. I'm aware of it a little bit more, but it's the most aggressive and deadliest kidney disease known to man. There's no cure to it. We all pass away from our disease unless we get a kidney transplant. And I've actually met parents who had teenagers who are on their 3rd and 4th kidney because it's ravaged their new kidney.
Wow.
So I'm really fortunate to be here 15 years later on the same kidney and everything. My health is great. And I knew that there was going to be a really big stigma about me coming back and competing. I'm like, and I got ripped apart. Oh, you got a blessing, you got a new kidney, you're going to go and F that off again, great for you, I'm like, I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't know I could, in a way that I could do it. So, but, to get into that, I wanted to do it for a bigger reason, to go back on stage again earlier because what we talked about, I've met so many people all over the world who've been through really, really dark times and been, as we say in the military, been out in dark waters, really deep, dark waters, and you just imagine yourself being out in the middle of the ocean and it's deep and it's dark and there's nothing around you. And that's a lifestyle that a lot of us has lived. So I remember joking saying, I'm never going to compete again because I've been in a fight with Jason and Freddy Krueger and they both whipped my ass at the same time, meaning I have so many scars all over me from all my surgeries. I'd be too embarrassed. But after meeting people who had worse scars than me, and they would ask me, how do they live? And people, who have worse, transplants than me and, on 3rd and 4th transplants, everything I've been through, back surgery, knee surgery and all that stuff. I'm like, wow, I need to make a stance, for these people. So it was never about me. I knew I couldn't compete against these young guys. And I point blank said, I cannot beat these young cats. It's going to be an honor to stand on stage with them, but I got to do it for a bigger reason. And it was just my way of trying to show people, hey, listen, if I've been through all this and I can stand up here with my ratchet ass ripped all apart and say, hey, I'm still trying, you have no excuse. But I can't say you don't have no excuse unless I go do it. So as we said before, people given certain gifts or whatever, I knew that was just something I had to do for people who just have for some of us, it's just hard waking up the next morning, or you wake up and like, okay, I made it through today, I'll kill myself tomorrow. So that was my way of just standing there and saying, hey, listen, I'm still fighting. And if any of you have ever invested any power in me and said, hey, you did it, maybe I can, then here I am standing again. Hey, I'm doing it, maybe you can.
And health is good now, everything's...
Health is great. Excellent. Yeah, so my numbers are getting worse, but I'm on my 15th year. So with a kidney transplant, period, even if you don't have my disease, I think the average is 7 years that you can live on it before it starts declining. And from there, it's based on your donor. So all my factors were actually worse because my donor was a woman. So obviously a woman is not going to sustain a man's body, right? It doesn't work that way. And she was very petite. So it's a smaller kidney. And we almost actually lost her kidney on the table, they told me, because she was so petite that her main artery was too short to fit inside me. So they had to take another artery out of mine to make that happen, or else they would have just put her kidney back in her, and that would have been it. So, and then about 3 months after my transplant, I got really, really sick. I got the flu. So the thing about a kidney is we have to take
like medicine so your body doesn't reject it, right?
Yeah, anti-rejection medicine. Immunosuppressants, immune suppressants, yeah. So when you get sick, your body amps up to beat off this disease. Well, the problem, or the sickness, the flu or whatever, or coughing cold or whatever. So your body doesn't recognize anything except what it's meant to be in it. So it looks at the kidney as a foreign body. So as I get sick and my body amps up with these immunes to try to build up my immune system, it's actually attacking the kidney. So what they do is, based on how sick I get, they then make a decision that I got to go in a hospital. And they're trying to kill off the flu without trying to kill the kidney. And it's a balance. But it does damage the kidney because they got to win that. So when that happens, that weakens the kidney. So anyway, long story short is, here I am almost 15 years later, and my creatinine level is, I just had it checked actually a couple of days ago, it's 2.7. So 2.7 is not great, but my new number, once I got my kidney transplant, became 2.0. Fresh from my kidney was at its strongest.
So you've only gone up 0.7.
0.7 in all these years, 0.7. But, one of the biggest things that the telltale sign they know now to look for with this disease is if you're leaking protein. So now at all these years up until last year, I was leaking 0 protein. So now it's at +1. So it's starting to climb. So of course the kidney is starting to fail. But I mean, after 15 years, I remember talking to the doctors when I was in the hospital, and they ran a 24-hour analysis on me where I urinated for 24 hours. They took my blood for 24 hours, and they're like, I remember them sending them in a room, and I'm sick as a dog. And they're like, you shouldn't be here. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he goes, no. He goes, your kidney is functioning at 70%. And this is 14 years later. 70% is functioning. He goes, some people don't even function at 70% with both kidneys. And he goes, wow, this is great. And I go, no, it isn't. It's the man upstairs. That's just his will. There's nothing you can do about that. Yeah, whatever. But still, I'm like, whatever to you. But I get it. So, I'm not sure what the numbers are now, but I know now I'm leaking 0.1, where when I had kidney failure, I was at 16 grams, which is deadly.
Oh, wow.
So I'm at 1 now. So I know it's climbing, but, it never meant to happen to be here. 14 years later, when the average is 7 years, and here I am going into my 15th year, and I still feel fine. I still look good, but I know my numbers. So I know it's coming. I know it's coming, but I've always known that it's going to be coming. I thought it was going to be a lot sooner. I thought it was going to be around 3 years that I would last.
You look healthy and you look good, man.
I feel great.
That's
I feel
amazing.
great.
Now,
and it's just a man upstairs. I mean, yeah.
Do you have to, or are you still on HRT, or do you think you're?
Yeah. So I can't go off. Yeah.
I was going to ask you that, because so this is something that I fucked with steroids, and I shared this on the show a lot.
Yeah.
I fucked with steroids a lot in my early 20s, not knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
Forever impacted me, but it didn't really catch up to me until I turned about 30, and I went and got tested, realized that my
What was your
hormone
level at?
200.
200? Oh,
Yeah.
yours was better than mine.
Oh wow, you were worse than that.
79.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy joked, he goes, your son, who's 3 years old,
has more testosterone.
I'm like, but I don't care. My thing was, and I'll let you finish, my thing was like, I've been sticking myself for over half my life. I'm good. I don't give a damn.
Right.
79, I go, I don't care. And, my libido is not as crazy as it was before, but it should have never been where it was. I go, I'm comfortable with this. I just don't care.
Yeah.
And
The reason why I'm asking this, I'm just curious for myself, because I'm still, at 30, I went on HRT, 31 or 32-ish was when I actually decided to compete. And when I competed, that was when I started to ramp my dosage up. So I was taking a very mild dose in my early 30s. And then it got into competing. As I started to ramp up, I started to take a higher dose. And like I said, I never really got over 400 milligrams of testosterone, which is not very high.
No.
But I did
Women take more than that.
Right. So they do these days. It's crazy to me. But I did consistently take that, with no breaks or anything for over 4 or 5 years straight.
Wow. You didn't come off?
No. And now I've been off for over a year and trying to naturally bring it back up. And I'm still kind of in the floor. I'm not.
Where are you at now?
We have a Everlywell is a company that we're sponsored by that does like an at-home spit test. And so they don't use the same
range or whatever.
But in their range, I'm considered in the low normal. So I've actually broke into the quote unquote normal. So what I probably think, if you were to compare it to the test that we're familiar with, blood, where it's 400 to about 1200, I'm probably about 400 now, which that's a big victory for me. Although I feel like shit as far as what I used to.
Athletes, their natural levels are higher. Right. That's why they can do crap that other people can't do. So your low 400 probably is low to you because you're gifted to be more than that. And the same as, when we were talking about drugs, it's funny because I met great athletes from some incredible sports. I remember sitting down talking to, I won't say a guy or a girl, but this young person they're in Wimbledon and they won a few times, and we're talking about drugs. And we're very comfortable talking to another athlete. It's just, hey, unwritten law,
Right,
unless you're a dick. So we're talking about the stuff I'm using. He's talking about the stuff I just said he. He's talking about the stuff he's using. I'm like, why? Why would you use that? I understand what every drug does. I'm like, why would you use that? He goes, Flex, how do you think tennis is won?
That power.
He goes, power, speed, and endurance. And right when he said that, I'm like, click, 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 click. Those 3 drugs would do that. And I met people from cross skiing
cross country skiing.
Cross country skiing. And I'm like, why? Same thing. Power, speed, and endurance.
Well, it works.
And the same people who run, they drop, they shoot, and all that stuff. All these crazy sports, obviously cycling and everything else, but it's just here.
It's prevalent. I think it's actually funny that we
talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really funny that I'm a big Giants fan. I'm pro Barry Bonds. When he got drugged through the mud over that, I was just like, are you fucking kidding me?
I got drugged in that too with Victor Conte. He's a very close friend of mine. That Balco laboratory, I got called up and all that stuff. So yeah, I never met with Barry, but I met what's the one girl, the track star.
Oh yeah. I can't remember her name though.
Joyner?
No. That's the sister. But yeah, I met her and all those people. But it's funny because, should I say that or not?
It's mind pump. You say whatever the fuck you want.
It's funny because I remember, and I won't say how I found out, but I remember being explained to once the cameras turned off when they were in Victor's place, Balco. Once the cameras turned off and all the film left, the people there that were enforcing everything, once they took off their gear, they just sat down and talked to him. They were his clients.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, man, we're sorry.
Wow.
We got the call. We had to go. And it's amazing. It's just hypocritical.
I get more frustrated at the people that get all angry about it and putting their 2 cents in, and that have
probably drink and they probably smoke or do something else. Really? And you're going to try to cut my backyard? Really?
Right.
Unless you're spotless, you have nothing to say.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you want to put an asterisk by him, like take all the credit of what that kid probably put into all the years of his life to be as great as he was.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's human nature. It's the same as you get it. For men, but I see it more in women. A woman walks by, she's really great. I used to look like that. Wait till she have a couple of babies. She'll be just, that's no effing excuse. You just shit on yourself. That's all. You didn't take care of yourself. You let yourself flop, but you're looking at somebody else and you're blaming them for all the attributes. No, stop it. I remember back then, we'd walk into a club, and I don't believe in going out. And if I ever did, it'd have to be at least 10 of us because I understood people are stupid. They're going to say, oh, steroids, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to have to fight. So I understood, when one of us walked through the door, then the next one, we're all 240. Not even that. We're like 290, 300. So after you see like the fourth person walk through the door and he's 3+, you're not going to say nothing, right? But you see, I'm great at reading people. So you see the guy, you sit with a bunch of girls, he leans over. So the girls look at you and then he leans over, blah, blah, blah. And you're like this. I'm like, so I would just be a dick. I'll walk him like, hey, really? I go, so you think my nuts are small, right? Let her find out. And then I didn't say nothing. Like, you know what? You just proved you're a punk because your girls know what you really said and they're seeing how you are right now. So now you're exploiting yourself as being a little bitch. And I just walk away. But you just got guys. So what happened is it wasn't about the steroid. It's just they felt inferior. Yeah. And because you pointed out something, not meaning to, but he just looked at you and identified to you and he felt inferior, he's uncomfortable. It's human nature. Mm-hmm. Right. So you got to be a really strong individual to look at another person like, God dang, man, you look great. Right. That's a real person. That's a real woman. That's a real guy. Yep. It just don't happen that often.
Well, I think people need to realize, we've done episodes on this, but I could take all the gear in the world and I wouldn't look as good as a top pro bodybuilder when they're natural.
And I can train all day long like Usain Bolt and I'm still going to be ass dirt slow.
That's right. That's right.
I want to take you another direction right now. And you said, I'm going to back you up because you said something great earlier on and I want you to elaborate on it before I take you that other direction. You said that I don't see color. There's only good people and bad people. Yeah. And I think that's really special and unique coming from someone like you that's probably dealt with discrimination and things like that. I want you to elaborate.
Especially where you're from. Wasn't that like the was it
Ku Klux Klan?
There was a KKK.
F-14, F-14s. But the KKK, the police officers, I witnessed to my older brother being beaten a lot by a police officer, and I would just stand there and he would just like, run, Kenny, just run. Don't. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm a little kid, but I want to jump in there and try to help him. He's just getting his ass stumped, and I'm like, and he was just like, no, just turn away. But what I recognize, just because you have some officers who are bad, that don't make all of them bad. It's a very honorable thing. And that's why I want to become one. When everyone's running away, they're running towards, they're the worst person you want to see. You don't want to see them at all. Fuck you, Officer Pig, but you got a problem. Who you calling? Mm-hmm. So I respect that. And at a young age, I understood that, just like I understood all white people aren't bad. And when they portray all black people bad aren't bad. But I know some, right? Mm-hmm. So I again identified it's just good and there's bad. Good and bad police officers, good and bad white people, black people. I've had worse happen to me from black people than I have white people. So I just understand that there's just good and bad.
So I find it. When I see stuff like that, like right now, what's happening right now with Kaepernick and Nike. And by the way, we talked about this a little bit the other day. That's what I knew. I really like Fleck. But here's the thing: it's like you have a situation that happens, but then you have politicians and people with power who use that situation to separate everybody as much as they possibly can, because when you can separate people, they're easier to manipulate.
Sure, you can pick them off.
Absolutely. So a guy like Kaepernick, who is peacefully protesting, whether you agree with him or not, that's what he's doing. He's peacefully protesting. But politicians are turning it into it's against cops, or it's all cops, or it's against the military. Yeah. So now you've got like these two camps, and people feel like they have to take a side. Yeah. Like you either like the military or you're pro minority or pro military. It's like you can be both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I seen the post. Actually, a friend of mine showed me the post. I'm like, oh my God, I was eating at the protein house, and one of the owners showed me. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding? So I'm like, fine, I need to find that picture. So I found it and I posted it, and it went viral, and it was very controversial, and it illuminated something I already knew. They say, here in the United States, we have a right to protest, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. I've always known that was a lie. And, I've done other posts that I got ripped apart about. And I find it interesting that some of the messages I got some military people saying, hey, F you, you don't support the military. I don't support you or officers, or, don't piss on the flag and all that. And I'm like, exactly when did I say that? And I didn't respond to everybody, because it's just, I think it's over 400 comments now. They're like, exactly when did I say that? So they're identifying to me and Cap, because I guess Cap may have said some negative things about officers or wore pigs on his socks. Sure. I respect him, and I stand behind him for the stance that he's taken about, equality.
Sure.
So just because I represent him or I respect him on that, I have to respect him on all his views. That's really interesting, because I respect officers, but I don't respect all officers because of their views, because I know there's good and there's bad that's happened. It's proven. So if I have to take a side and a person's done bad things and good things, then it makes me a part of all that, then I guess I shouldn't respect any officers because bad things have happened. I guess I shouldn't respect any military because bad things have happened. I guess I shouldn't respect our flag because bad things have happened. I guess I shouldn't respect the national anthem because I know the real first national anthem that was written when it had slaves in it. I don't know if you guys do, but you can research it. When the British came over, the United States already had slaves, and the British said, hey, listen, any of you slaves who want to be free, come fight with us and you'll be free forever. And that's what happened. So none of that bothers me, because I understand that I can respect a person for one part of what he's saying and not the next, other thing. It doesn't make everybody wrong. And now I've been balled up that I'm anti-American, and I even had my team look at it, and as of right now, I've lost over 600 followers because of it. And I'm like, that doesn't bother me.
The way I look at it is whether you agree or not. I mean, I'm not a big Kaepernick fan. I'm not a big football fan, period. I don't really watch the sport. And I'm not a huge Kaepernick fan just because I saw him wear Che Guevara shirt, and that to me seems ignorant.
I heard about that too.
But here's the thing. I have a very very close friend who's a veteran, and he told me, he goes, look, the very reason why I served is to fight for people's right to protest. So whether I agree with them or not, I will always fight for someone's right to be able to do that. Now, of course, the NFL is a private organization. They can fire him over it as well. Yeah. But I just think it's funny how people divide so strong. Yeah.
I actually took the opposite side with the intent of stirring the pot. Okay. So I posted a Pat Tillman meme that people had already gone viral, and I already knew there was it triggered a ton of people. And I wrote under it, I said, better
same message, better man.
Same message, better man. And then I did a funny meme on Kaepernick, knowing damn well what I was going to do. Right. And I stirred everybody up who started sending stuff to me. And I said, whoa. I'm not choosing military here, and I'm not choosing what he stood up for. In fact, I'm pro what Kaepernick stood up for. In fact, I think that's awesome that he stood up for that right. What I'm trying to unveil to everybody that's listening and watching me on Instagram is the last post that I did after that, which was when I showed how much Nike is getting right now from all the advertising.
Exactly.
Yeah.
$48 million, which is more money than Kaepernick is going to get paid. So Nike used Kaepernick as a pawn in this situation. And they really don't give a fuck about his cause. I don't care how they pitch it and they say it. They care about making money. That's their business, and they're supposed to. Meanwhile, they're dividing all of us as a nation, and here we are
arguing and even having this conversation because of it.
Exactly. You're pro him, I'm pro him, and we're getting into this debate. Meanwhile, everyone's talking about Nike, who slid their name into a conversation that they didn't even belong into.
Yeah.
And so that was the reason why I did that, because I'm pro him being able to stand up. I'm pro what he was standing up for, but I'm also pro the NFL letting him go, because it's just like, and I gave the analogy that if one of my employees who's supposed to show up at 8:00 and work here every single day decided to not come to work as a protest for a cause that he believes in, his ass will probably get fired, even if I believe he's got a good cause. I respect the cause. I respect people, but I also, this is my business, and you hurt me financially. Kaepernick hurt the NFL financially, big time. Can we blame them for firing him or not allowing him to play?
It's either or. So it doesn't matter whether you agree or disagree. I understand, and I have the ability to easily say, I agree, or let's agree that we disagree and move on. That's how I am. So people who said negative things, that's fine. You have that right to do that. If you disagree with that, that's fine that you have the right to do that. So my real people who know me know that I'm pro-military, know that I'm behind the military, know that I've traveled all over the world for the military, know that I was a police officer, and how I speak. I already said, listen, I got into it because it's the most honorablest thing to do. Yet I watch people get beaten over them, but doesn't make all of them, bad. So that don't really bother me. And the people who do not follow me, or say, you know what, I've lost all respect for you. That's fine, because I understand now you never respected me because you don't even know who I am. And here we are supposed to be in the United States, and you unrespect me because of my views are different than yours. You're actually worse than the people that we're fighting against. And this last beautiful thing is, I have a friend, I won't say his name, but done some interesting things for the military. He's retired now, and, because he got injured, but just some great, interesting things. We train together every once in a while. And he goes, I hate Cap. He goes, but I respect what the fuck he said. And he goes, that shit has nothing to do with the flag, has nothing to do with the officer. He goes, they're spinning all that stuff and it's stupid. And I watch how people slander you and beat you up. And he goes, I just laugh at it. He goes, but just know from me, we know it has nothing to do with the flag or us. And the last thing I'll say is, I think the joke that I sent to you is, Nike is being boycotted by a lot of Americans because they put Cap as their 30th year face or whatever. Yet the Catholic has been raping kids for centuries, yet they haven't been boycotted. Fact. Okay. So like you said, Kaepernick is peacefully doing it. You have a organization, very powerful organization that has been raping kids for centuries.
They just had that huge case in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
With something like 1,000 children affected and like 300 priests.
Yeah, I mean,
and the Pope is not even saying anything about it.
And here United States is getting mad at this one guy because he says, you know what?
You know why? Because we're told to be angry about that.
Yeah,
That's why.
and you're ignorant not to take your own stand instead of. So I've gotten people like, you know what, Flex, I don't agree with you. I mean, I disagree with you on that point, but I respect you for standing for what you believe in. And I'm like, hey, man, great. I respect you too. So it should be able to be done. That's what America is supposed to be about. But that post and your post proves that we're not really that.
No, man, I tell you what, whether you agree with Cap or not, the most American thing you could possibly do is peaceful civil disobedience.
Yeah.
That is in our fabric. Now you remember and I trust me, this is all connected because we're all around the same age. You remember
You're not as old than I am.
About to say, I think you're a little older. You remember the cola.
We're
wars.
older we look. It's that good.
No, you don't look that old.
You remember the cola wars, right? Pepsi versus Coke.
Oh yeah.
Okay. A lot of people don't realize that Pepsi and Coke behind closed doors organized that.
Yeah, cahoot.
And they came out with the ads. Ours is better than theirs, and this that. And what it did is it took away shares from 7-Up and Sprite and all the other.
Because it made them the controversy.
Because it made people think they had to pick between only two choices.
Yeah.
And this is the game that they're playing right now. You're told you need to care about, or that you need to pick a side with Kaepernick. You're told that there's only two sides, but in reality, it's two sides of the same coin. It's the same people pulling the strings, and they want us to divide and separate. When in reality, people really don't want to divide and separate. We all kind of want to work together, and that's the worst. That's the biggest
That'd be the
fear.
worst thing that if we all come together. Listen, it's interesting that a point is the national anthem. I forgot how many years ago that the military paid for that to happen for the sport because it didn't used to happen
That's
before.
right.
Yeah, if you don't remember that, so it was never nothing political or American about it. It was a business. They paid them to do that. People don't know that. Here's the thing. They say, okay, you should stand for the national anthem. What I understand is Kaepernick used to sit down for the national anthem. But one of his buddies in the military said, you know what, don't do that. Just go ahead and take a knee so you don't disrespect nobody. Only when he took a knee, they started thinking it was disrespectful. Right. Here's my point on that. So you're supposed to stand for the national anthem, be quiet, take your hat off. And if you don't, it's disrespectful. So the people out there tailgating, they don't stop drinking. They don't take their hats off. They're still loud. All the dickheads who are disrespecting people because of their beliefs or the way they think about it, when they're at home watching that damn game, they don't stand up, take their hat off, stop drinking. Well, so it's really, so I want to say that to everybody who's against anyone who said, hey, you should stand or is do you stand at your home? How about other sports when they play their national anthem? Do you stand up? Do you stop talking? No, you don't. Come on, man. That's just a bunch of BS.
Well, all these people that are taking their shoes and burning them, and all of a sudden they care. You know what? It's like, why don't you give those shoes to like a homeless veteran?
This is all about money and power.
Yeah. When's the last time you went to a veteran hospital?
Nike's the one who's making out on all of this stuff. It ain't about the cause. It ain't about the military. It's about exploiting this whole situation. That's the unfortunate.
And what you're saying, if it's true about Nike using Cap as a pawn, what I do is I take back, a strategic, war view is Kaepernick had to be that because he got his message out to a greater, So is it a pawn for him? Even though Nike might be looking at it, you got to look at your position because of that. It empowered him to have this conversation and billions of people to respond. The
thing I wonder though now with when we do protests like this and the awareness and because stuff moves so fast and because not as many people can have a rational, intelligent conversation like this. Sometimes I wonder if it does as much harm as it does good.
I'll use this analogy, and it's a really bad one.
Well, then don't use it.
Because it's volatile.
Okay.
I'll use two. War is ugly, but sometimes, not all the wars that we've been in, I'm not going to get into that, but war is horrible and ugly. But if it didn't happen, awareness wouldn't happen and change wouldn't it came, right? Millions of people die. It's unfortunate that had to happen for that change to come, because if not, it would have continued as usual and nothing would have been done. So that's perception on what you're saying. And I remember this one officer in Los Angeles was going around, you guys remember, he was going around sniping, killing people. Yeah. That started because he was offended. When he was in a car, he was called an N-word while he was in a car with other officers, and he got upset and went to fight over it. And it looked, they made him feel bad about it. And he was continuously treated a certain way as a black person. So he went off and did something that I don't agree with. He started killing innocent people and officers and everything. I don't agree with that. Take the fight to the person. Don't do that. But how ugly that was, that would have never came out unless he took that ugly ass stance. And because of that ugly stance, things were rectified later on. So it's sad that you got to resort to some heinous ass crime for people to stand up and acknowledge it. You know, war and slavery and all the hangings and horrible things that I've heard about. Tar and feather, really, tar and feather. Imagine that. You're alive and they pour hot tar over you. So you're cooking and baking and screaming. And then as a joke, they put feathers on you. You know, being hung with your private, you know, shoved in your mouth after. Imagine all those things, but all those things had to happen for us to even be acknowledged as equals. It's sad. It's so a lot of times it's sad that these really ungodly things has to happen for people to stand up and take notice.
Yeah.
So it's perception. Is it perception that is bad because the people had to went through that? Or is it perception that is bad because it changed for the people who didn't?
Well, violence is the phrase violence is the language of those who don't have a voice, who can't speak. And I think it was Martin Luther King that said something like that. I'm sure I'm butchering it, but
I get it completely.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, here's the deal. What's happening now as a result of, because we've had a bunch of videos, because the internet allows information to be shared very quickly.
Sure,
and I like that, but it does cause a lot of controversy. But it's okay because things change. You know what's happening now? Lots of police stations now are putting body cameras on people, required to wear them. And what's interesting about this is you know, because people are being recorded, you have less instances of issues, but you also have a lot of police officers who are also getting rectified as well.
Yeah,
and I agree with that.
I do too. I talked to some of my buddies who are still police officers, and they're like, you know what? I don't care about it because what it's going to do is prove you right.
Yep, exactly.
So the only people who are pissed about it, and his analogy is the people that's going to prove you wrong. Right. So, you know, if I was in a situation, and it's known here in the United States, you get sued for anything, person in a car wreck and you help pull them out the car and they turn around and sue you because their back broke. I mean, but if you had a camera to prove that their back was broke, all right, it would have proved you right. So it's sad about that, you know, but I think it's necessary and it should have happened. And, you know, technology or photo cameras and everything. Imagine all the lies that could have went through. Like the one guy, I remember seeing a video where the police officer shot him going to the car. And as the guy tried to drive away, he shot him, continue, and killed him. That police officer could have said, hey, he took fire or took aggressive. It would have never been known. I seen the other video where the kid's running. The cop put 3 in his back. He could have said that he, you know, threw a gun down or something like that. That would never would have been. So it's sad that it's to that point. But no, the real sadness is it's at that point.
Yep.
And it's been happening. So imagine how many things would have been, you know, taken care of before if the camera was there. So it's sad that we're there. I remember, you know, after I retired from being a police officer, actually I didn't retire. I got laid off. I was with the sheriff. So sheriff is the county, money comes in and goes out. So I got laid off and went into bodybuilding and never had to go back. But as a pro bodybuilder, I remember, you know, getting pulled over and I could see that I'm an officer. I'm still aware of everything. So I know I'm speeding. So I'm speeding and I'm looking at my mirror like, who the fuck is this speeding like an idiot? Imagine that, right? Because I'm an idiot for speeding. And I see the car, I can tell because the car is going like this. That means it's traveling at a high speed because it's bouncing up and down. I'm like, who is this idiot? And as it gets closer, it's an unmarked car with 2 police officers. And I'm like, crap, all right. So I'm pulling up to a light. I know I'm caught already. So I just make a turn and stop right there. So I'm sitting and I'm looking in my rearview mirror and this guy's anxiously getting his seatbelt off and he grabs his gun and he's coming to my car with his gun drawn. I'm like, so I'm right in public. So he says, roll your windows down. I roll both windows down and I put my hands on my steering wheel. He goes, reach for your license. I go, my license is in my glove compartment. He goes, well, don't move too fast. I might accidentally shoot you. And I just like, fuck, this is how that happens. Yeah. So I'm in public. And there's a lot of people around and they recognize my car and everything. So people are yelling, hey, Flex, you all right? I'm like, no, I'm not all right. Stay right there, man. Watch this. So then he goes to my front windshield and all I can do is look down a barrel of, I'm just staring down this empty thing like, wow. He goes, go ahead, reach for it. I go, okay. So I'm going to reach in my glove compartment with my 2 fingers. I'm going to grab my wallet and pull it out. And he goes, go ahead, real slow. And I put it down and he looks at my license and why are we speeding? I'm like, why you do a felony stop on me? He goes, what are you talking about? I I go, why you do a felony stop on me? He goes, no, I didn't. I go, yeah, you did. You came out with your gun drawn out. I go, I'm not answering shit. I'm not saying shit. I want your commander here. Whoever's your commander, I want him here now. So like 6 cars pull up within an hour, and they're all arguing behind. So the leading officer walks up to me, and he's like, what happened? I go, where your officer said the reason he did a felony stop is because my windows, because I was a real big guy in the car. I'm like, oh, because my windows are tinted. And he said that he pulled his gun because my windows are tinted and he didn't know it was in the car. So that's a lie. He goes, okay. I go, so why did he do a felony stop on me? He goes, he did a felony stop. I go, you know he did. He came out with his gun drawn. Well, he feared for his safety. I go, why? Because you're big in a car, yet my windows are tinted. And that's what he said. Okay, so I'm a big guy in a car. So that's why he did a felony stop. I'm like, okay. He goes, well, you thought your car was stolen because you're driving fast. All right, okay. I said, so a felony stop. He never asked me for my weapon. He never secured my car. He never put me out, prone me down, handcuffed me, and then checked my car. So this whole time, I could still have my weapon in my car and kill all you guys because it's a felony stop, right? He never checked the car. I'm like, nah. Can I check the car? I'm like, sure. Let it be known your ass going to check the car an hour after the event. So long story short, we got into it, and I went down and filed a report and everything. But that's happened to me a number of times. It's happened to me by being in a $125,000 car, at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, picking up somebody from the airport, me being an ass, blasting my music because I was in back in the 90s, and having an officer yell at me, hey, turn that fucking music down. And I'd be an ass. Huh? I can't hear you. My music too loud, So they pull out their gun and they're walking up to me. So I'm like, turn your music down. I'm like, okay, I couldn't hear you. My music's real loud. So after we get to talking and he finds out that I'm, was an officer, they put their gun in their, holster and start talking. I'm like, no. Pull your gun back out and continue to treat me like the asshole that you thought it was because I'm that asshole, right? But it's looking at a person based on what they're driving or how they're acting and profiling that they're this character. You can't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, it's got to be one of the most difficult jobs to do.
It is,
because it's like you're frightened or you're terrified or you have different ideas or you're in a bad mood and you have the legal authority to use force, to use lethal force.
Escalated force. So if a person don't have a weapon, you can go to your baton.
Right.
If they have a weapon, you can go to your gun. It's not escalated. They say they can't fear for their life. And that's one of the bad things. I don't think all officers spend time in jail because you learn how to use or, deal with a person without no weapons whatsoever. But it is an extremely difficult job. You have to walk up to a car knowing you might be just pulling a person over for a broken tire. Hey, I just want to let you know, and you get shot in the face. Mm-hmm. So it is difficult. Like I said, when everyone's hating you, when you pull up beside them, you might just, hey, how you doing? And they're like, fuck you, man. But when something goes wrong, that's who you call in.
Yeah.
Right.
When something really, really bad happens, you're running and they're running to it. So it's a double-edged sword. But my argument is this. As an officer, and when I chose to be an officer, I chose to do that. I chose to put myself in harm's way. I chose to run towards danger or away from it, and I'm actually paid to do it. It's my job. So don't make excuses or be a dick when you're doing your job and you run into another dick. If that dick or that crime didn't happen, you wouldn't have a job. And you went to school and you were educated to do this job. Don't turn around like all these damn criminals and get hardened over it. You chose to do that. I just don't get it. And you're getting paid to do that.
So when you see or when you have a situation like that and you think back and we talk about the Kaepernick thing and police brutality, do you think we have more of a problem with bad people in those positions and maybe power tripping, or do you think we have more of a race problem?
Well, I can say one thing, I'm racist. I believe in my own race. I just got to come out and say that. I believe in my own race. I believe my race was put on this earth to rule all over us. Everyone else. The human race. I believe in that race. I see no other race.
Damn, that was good.
I've used that
you
before.
You had me for a second. I'm like, oh shit, this podcast just turned negative, man.
Well, I've actually, when I do keynote speaking, I use that, but I go a little deeper. I normally say, you know what? I want everyone from my race to stand up and clap their hands and go, and they'd stand up, all the black people just stand up and go crazy. What I've done is I've exploited everyone. Mm-hmm. I've exploited everyone who stood up. and I exploited everyone who sat down. Whether you sat down or not, you've proven to me that you're not a part of my race and you don't get it. Mm-hmm. You see difference. Mm-hmm. If you stood up, you've proven to me that you don't see what I'm saying and you see race as different. That's my whole point in doing that. So normally I go into it deeper, but I am a part of the human race. That's the only race I see. Now saying that, as far as officers, it's not meant to be a job. It's a career. A job is McDonald's, Burger King. It's not meant to be a job. And I'm dyslexic, horribly dyslexic. I almost flunked police academy 3 times because of my dyslexia. Yet I had these other people who were very, very, very book smart. Couldn't even do a push-up. Couldn't shoot worth a shit. And I'd be like, there's no way in the world that I have you going through my having my back. So I think it's because a lot of people, choose to do this job because they're smart enough, but they're not dedicated as a career. They're meant to be put on this earth to help people, to run towards danger when other people are running from it. So, and I think it's more exploited now because of cameras, but come on, it's always been going on. What happened, I heard in New York, what the one black guy, he's in jail and he dies by being assaulted by a broomstick stuck up his butt. Mm-hmm. There was no cameras to that though, right? Mm-hmm. Come on, this crap has been going on. And I'm not just, so the other thing about the cap thing, I already said it, I don't see color. This isn't a black or white problem. This is a human problem. All of us should be treated with equality. All of us should have all equal rights, regardless of your color, creed, or financial standing. That's my big argument. It's not a black or white thing because white people are treated just as bad. Brown people are treated just as bad. We should all be treated as equal. I don't care if you're freaking gay with 3 antennas coming out your hair and, from Mars. Hey, man, if you're a human being, you should be treated as such.
I'm with you. I think people should be treated as individuals. And if you're cool, I'm cool with you. If you're not, I don't like you. And that's just about it. I really don't care where you come from. Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast. It's been great having you here.
Thank you. I truly, truly appreciate it. It's not the pleasure for you guys. It's a pleasure that, you guys think this person has something to say of any value, and that's truly the pleasure. I mean, being invited here, being invited anywhere all over the world. People always say, "Oh, it's a pleasure." No, it's a pleasure that you just see me as a person, and I have something, something to say, and I have, some importance or whatever to offer to people. That's the true pleasure. And I go back to again, that's all that people want. Is to be treated as equal, whether you're black, white, straight, gay, lesbian, whatever. They just want to be accepted. So the pleasure is really mine to be accepted by you guys.
I appreciate it. Much appreciated, Flex. Thank you.
Awesome, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.